Through the concrete cracks worn weary by work boots and high heels. Through the concrete cracks showered in tears of sorrow, tears of joy. Through the concrete cracks rumbled by reverberations of 100 years, a flower on the hill takes its first breath, and a grand hope springs. Welcome to the Spring Street podcast at the intersection of creation and destruction in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. And now, a word from the sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by Starship Kairos, a podcast studio available for bookings in downtown Los Angeles. Starship Kairos is where my guests and I make this show happen. Soundproofed, cozy, and equipped with professional audio gear, Starship Kairos is an ideal location for any type of podcast. Starship Kairos offers a full suite of services including content consultation, mixing and mastering, and custom jingle writing. For rates and booking, check them out on Instagram at Starship Kairos or click on the link in the description. And now, let's dive in.
Before we start,
Before
I've always wanted to do this. Okay. La Croix. Sponsored by La Croix. The beverage of van life.
Yeah, that sounded pretty incredible. Well, Ramon, you are live on the Spring Street podcast right now, but we're not on Spring Street.
Mm-mm.
We are in a top secret location somewhere in the Arts District.
Spaceship.
Inside of your van, also known as a spaceship, also known as a van. I am almost speechless at your setup. I've seen this setup a few times when we've like hung out.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited that we're finally getting to do this episode on location. Because a lot of times every time when I interview a van lifer, we talk about their van. And I ask them to describe it, but I'm never able to like show the visuals.
Yeah.
But here,
because you're in your van all the time.
Well,
right?
we're in the studio.
Or in the studio.
Just in the studio.
Nice.
I've only ever done one podcast in my van.
Oh shit.
And it wasn't even with like this. Like for those of you who are just tuning in, we just spent an hour like setting this whole thing up. Totally worth it because this is the most insane setup ever. But I'm excited because you are actually going to be able to kind of give people a little bit of a tour of the van.
I feel honored.
But I want to go back to the beginning. Where did this idea start for you to build out this van?
Okay. There's a few inspirations, some of which are driven by necessity, and some of it are like my inspiration motivations. There's two, and they both kind of happened simultaneously. So when it came to like necessity, there was like a whole situation with COVID where I do like videography and stuff for like people on YouTube, some people that work with like DJI and Sony and stuff like that. And a lot of that work during COVID just like stopped. And because, we were shut down and everybody was freaked out. So my money like kind of dried up for a little while. And like everybody's like, same story. And, but what ended up happening is I ended up kind of having a landlord that was very not receptive to trying to help with aid. So like all the programs that that you would apply for that would benefit from your landlord also applying, like we got none of those. And I was obviously able to get like some stuff by myself, but I wasn't able to get a lot of the stuff that I know we could have gotten, like rent assistance, stuff like that, if he had been like more participant. So the reason I bring that up is because at the end of all of that, he was like, "Hey, so cool. So why don't you just give me $13,000 and I won't evict you."
Dude.
And I get it. Like, I don't want this to be like a whole landlord versus tenant controversy, but I get like both sides as far as like you making money and them trying to make sure their investment's protected. I get it. But when somebody was like super like anti-helpful and anti-trying to like work together as a team to make it through it, I was like, okay, I got a decision to make. I either break my back and catch up on this rent and then have like nothing, or I do break my back still. I take that 13 grand and I buy a van because I've never had a van or anything like this before. And I was like, you know what? Screw it, man. Like, I'm going to buy a van. So that was the necessity motivation for being in a van. And the creative inspiration is I've just always like had a romantic feeling. Like, I feel like I was born a couple centuries too early. I'm actually deeply pissed about this. but I've always had this just romantic obsession with like a man in his ship, and I say man, I mean person, in his ship, with his crew, you know, traveling space. And it's very Firefly, if you've ever seen that show.
I actually haven't, but I did a podcast with somebody recently talking about Firefly, and it made me want to watch it. So
it's a Greek tragedy of a show because it's so amazing and it's so frustrating because it didn't even get a full season because Fox. That's a whole nother story. But problematic directors aside, it's a beautiful and great show. And the main character just kind of has this, I don't know, just this indignation of like fighting the good fight kind of thing, but not in like a hokey way, more of like a, like no matter how shitty things get, like he's got what he cares about, his people and his ship. And that feeling was just something that I really wanted to emulate in the van, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in this lame century that I live in, I feel like this is the closest I can get to a ship right now. And I'm not giving up on that, by the way. I'm still trying to contact the cabal of this planet and get myself in a ship and get off world at some point. I'll always drop signifiers on digital podcasts in case one of them are listening. I will leave everything behind.
It could happen, man. It could happen in our lifetime.
I don't doubt it because I know it's out there. I'm just trying to find it. But so like that kind of romance with like the road and being able to take my life and go everywhere with it, which is kind of the motivation for a lot of us, I think, on the road. But that was like a super long answer to what made me wrap my head around, oh, you could actually do this. Because I've never put myself in that role. Like I've watched awesome YouTube videos and I've seen, you know, people doing the life, but I've never been like, oh, you could do that. Like I've never even really wanted to do it. And then when this situation happened, I was like, shit, I should do this. Like this really helps me survive financially in a way where I don't have to once I got the big chunks paid for, you know, batteries and toilets and solars and stuff like that. Once I got that paid for, my monthly expenses were low. And then that means I can film whatever I want to film. And I don't have to work a 9 to 5 making tons of money just to pay bills, you know? So that was really the thrust behind this.
Yeah. And you got your van used. What year is this van?
This is a Spry and Chipper 2007 Sprinter for 3 years. Dodge branded all Mercedes Sprinters. So internally, maybe unfortunately, it's completely 100% Mercedes, but the grill and some of the badges say Dodge. They had this thing, I guess, where taxes. You learn a lot of really useless facts when you're researching vans and you're trying to buy vans, and there was like a high tariff tax situation in 2007 through 2010, apparently, where if you shipped a Mercedes van to America, it was like super expensive. So Mercedes like went, and I might be getting some of the details wrong, but the gist of it is Mercedes built these vans in Germany. They took them apart, they shipped them in chunks, and then Dodge put them together, put their badges on them, and then that avoided all the taxes. So internally, like when you get your tune-ups and all of your stuff, all the engines, it's 100% Mercedes. You go to a Mercedes dealership, but it's got a Dodge logo on it. So anyway, so it's a 2007 Dodge Mercedes Sprinter. But the reason I got this year was very specific. Those 3 years are a little bit pre-EPA mandate on certain things. So there's this stuff called DEF fluid, and it kind of it's like this stuff that's supposed to reduce emissions on the newer Mercedes, everything after like 2010. But it kind of has some side effects like lower gas mileage. It you have to make sure it's maintained, or it can like screw your whole engine up if it goes empty. Whole bunch of little stuff. So having an older vehicle like this, like I still get like really good diesel gas mileage
That's pretty sweet.
from it, if as long as I can keep it running, which is not is not a guarantee. She makes like noises. She makes certain whines when I move the steering wheel sometimes, and I'm just like, please don't break down. I can't afford to fix you right now. You know, so that is
my goodness.
That's the rub.
Yeah.
With that though.
Also, real quick, you know how there's like a loop on the XLR?
Oh yeah.
If you flip it the other way, that's even better. That's perfect. Yeah, it was just kind of like obscuring your face, but now you're good. One thing that you have that's really unique.
I was trying to fool the facial recognition sensors, but you know, it's fine.
Fool the facial recognition, but not the vocal recognition.
Oh, damn it, you're right.
You know, it's funny. There's a job that I'm doing right now. I won't get into like super specific details.
Yeah.
And that job also involves like a major like credit card banking company. And there's like a tapping thing to check in people for like a special perk. I'm being like super vague.
Yeah.
Intentionally.
I know how that works.
But it was funny because somebody made a comment the other day about like, oh, I don't want to tap. Like, I don't want to give away my information. And I'm just thinking like, if you have the card, you've already given away all of your information. And every single time you make a purchase, you are giving away that information.
Yeah. Guess what? You're born with a social security number. You're in the system. Yeah, sorry.
Unfortunately, for better or for worse.
Sorry.
What I was going to say is you have a very unique solar setup.
Yeah.
One that I've only ever seen one other van like this.
Yeah.
And it's permanently parked on the PCH with its solar panels on the side facing westward, so it really only gets sun half the day.
Yeah.
You have this massive solar panel on the side of your van. Do you have one on the top too?
So it's actually 4 solar panels. And
on the side?
No, there's
total.
2 on the side and 2 on the roof.
Okay.
And they're like what are called SIGs solar panels, which is kind of like a higher grade, supposedly military grade. I don't know how true that is or if that's even a compliment. But they're like they're pretty resilient. They're pretty tough. They're walkable if you trust them.
Really?
And made from this company, Bouge RV, who I owe a video to. I'm sorry if you hear this.
Oh.
I will get that video done, I promise, with a whole bunch of experience in the video. And it will be a fantastic video. I love Bouge RV. Anyways, so the Sprinter, as you know, having one is skinny. Like there's not a lot of surface area on the roof, you know, like a schoolie or box truck or something. And so these panels are 200 watts each, but they're long, so you can't really tile them one in front of the other. So I could only fit 2 on the roof. And my whole thing with this van is I needed to be digital, plugged in, and have a lot of availability to electricity. So my 2 most expensive kind of things that I was planning when I was just starting this van build, because I did everything myself on a shoestring budget, but all the initial money after buying the van, which I got for cheap, it's got like 200,000 miles on it. I got it for like, well, I say cheap, it was COVID cheap. Because now I could get this van for thousands less. But I got it for 12 grand with a perfect like service record, 200,000 miles, good condition.
Honestly, that's a great deal.
It's not bad. I probably could get it for under 10 now. You know, but it was in the middle of COVID. Everybody thought, and maybe still think, the world
cars got expensive over COVID. Used cars.
It really
Used
did.
Cars got expensive.
And vans, man. Like, so anyways, so I was like, man, I need more than 400 watts of solar, because that's going to be like one of, if not the biggest provider of juice for me. So I was like, okay, let's see if we can get 800 watts. So my first attempt at the panels, so I got 2 panels on the roof.
Yeah.
And then my first attempt, I built a solar awning on that same side of the
that's cool.
van that would swing up. So it would be on the side when I wanted on the side, and then when I wanted it to be even with the roof, it would
Mhm.
swing up and lock like an awning.
Yeah.
Well, I overestimated my prowess as an awning builder
Oh, no.
because like a lot of this has to be put into context of budget. Because if I had the budget, obviously
Yeah.
I could buy an awning that's designed for a sprinter
Yeah.
that would swing up and it would be fine. But I was like, I have to make this out of brackets that are just made to prop up solar panels on the ground. And then I
Mhm.
was like trying to come up with lattice work, substrate material to mount the panels on, but didn't get too hot. And there's like all this stuff you got to think about
Yeah.
because flexible panels, the one downside is they get too hot, they burn out in little spots.
Mhm.
And so I was always real cognizant of trying to keep them cool underneath them. So I built this panel and I actually built it and it actually worked, but it was so heavy, I
Oh,
couldn't
man.
get it up and lock it by myself very
Oh,
easily.
wow.
It was literally because the panels are wide. They're like 8 feet long.
Mhm.
So the awning was 8 feet long.
Mm.
And then it was heavy because of all the shit that I put on there to bolt it. And mind you, I've drilled holes in the side of my van now because I'm committed to this. And I'm like, gosh, man, I'm like, damn it. I got it to work, but it was just problematic. And I was like, I was starting to envision going down the freeway and like some nut coming loose and that whole heavy
Yeah.
panel. And I was just like, nah, it's not worth it. So I totally humbled myself, stripped all the panels off from the side, and then just mounted them directly to the van. Because there was still adhesive on the panels and I hadn't used it initially. But yeah, so I needed a way to double my surface area. And so I was just like, you know what? If I put 2 panels on the side of my van, I won't get the full solar array producing power all day. I won't get that. I'm never going to get 800 watts of solar. Not that anybody hardly gets full, but
Mhm.
I'm never going to get that. But what I will get, I'll get 400 watts or close to it for longer during the day.
Yeah.
So if I point my van, generally speaking, and these solar panels are really good at partial shading, where you'll still get some juice if like a good 30% of the panel's covered,
Yeah.
which is great. Shout out to Bouge RV. I love you. I'm sorry. But like, so instead of like maybe 3 hours of sun in this freaking wintertime where the sun's so low, I might get 4.5 of
Mhm.
producing power. So to me, that was worth it. So that's why I got a giant panel on the side, and I tried to make it look as less janky as possible.
Yeah.
But it's a thing. It's a look. You have to embrace it. But
I mean, honestly, you almost got me tempted to do a similar thing because I have 525 watts on my roof.
Yeah.
I got the Renogy solar panels.
those are hard panels, right? Like
They're hard.
glass panels.
Yeah, there's a special name, monocrystalline.
Yeah,
I think.
monocrystalline. Yeah, that sounds right.
Definitely can't walk on them. I mean, maybe you could. I would never do
No,
it.
don't walk on those.
Yeah.
No, you can't. Walk on those.
And they're cool. They're great.
Yeah, yeah.
They do what they need
Yeah.
for my setup. At the same time, I look at the surface area on the side of my van and I'm like, I 100% could put solar panels on that,
Yeah.
on the back, on the sides. Like I could go wild.
Yeah.
But another idea that I've had is like, I have this dream of setting up like a solar camp in the desert,
Yeah.
like having some like pop-up solar panels and like some tents, like going
Yeah.
out to the desert, popping up some tents, almost kind of like, I don't know, Bedouin style.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just having solar panels set out, all just connected and charged up.
Yeah.
And so
Very solar punk.
solar punk, absolutely.
The hopeful brother to cyberpunk.
I've tried to make some like AI inspired artwork.
Yeah.
Or I guess not AI inspired, AI artwork.
Yeah.
Inspired by cyberpunk meets solar. I was about to say sober punk.
That's
Maybe. Solar punk
sober punk sounds way
meets,
less fun.
meets
That's a way less fun dystopia. Hey, we're
Yeah.
sober punk.
desert nomad. You also have somewhat of an unconventional like power bank setup.
Yeah. So
Tell me
instead
about your
of
power bank setup.
so the go-to with everybody in the community normally is you'll get way more bang for your buck if you build your power system from scratch.
Yeah.
Got your
Battle-born
batteries.
batteries, your inverters.
Yeah. Or now it's even like, a lot of the rebranded, no name, different companies are producing pretty quality batteries, because now everybody's kind of got the formula. So you get like, ampere time, live.
I think that's what I have. I have like the cheap Chinese ones.
But they're good. They're like made in the same factories.
Yeah.
And like, as long as the quality control on them's decent, a lot of these are made really well now. It's like those first 1 or 2 generations of kind of the rebrands that are scary. But then after that, they tend to work pretty good.
Yeah.
Shout out to Will Pros for his his battery deconstructions on YouTube. He's always taking this shit apart and like letting people like, yeah. But it's great because then you get to see like, he's like, oh no, this brand's actually using good welds and stuff. So that's normally like the go-to. You plug in your DC to DC charger from your van's alternator. You rig a outlet so that you can plug into what's called shore power. I feel very naval when I say that, like I'm in the like I'm on the high
seas. It's a ship, man.
Yeah,
it's a ship.
And like, and then of course your solar interface and all that stuff. But when I was like kind of putting my system together, I was like, well, that's like the going way to do it, but what's going to work best for my situation? And I really tried to buck tradition if tradition is not exactly suited to what I'm trying to do. And that's like a mantra for my entire life. Whether it's filmmaking, whether it's writing, whether it's whatever, like kind of do your own thing if your thing works better than how everybody else is doing it. On the flip side of that, if what you're trying to do your own way doesn't work as good, stop lying to yourself and try to do the best way. But so for me, I'm not going to be out in the country, like hardly ever. I grew up in the mountains. Nature's great, but I don't like it that much. Okay, I am.
I love it.
I grew up in like the Lake Arrowhead, Big Bear area, and it's not like super isolated mountain, but you'd be surprised at how much isolation the mountains are, even though it's only like 70, 80 miles from LA. It's a different world growing up there. Super small town vibes. Everything closes by 8 o'clock. It's just, it's a thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, because like maybe I just didn't feel like I was living my best life growing up there yet, or I wanted to pursue my passions, but I needed to get out like as soon as possible. And I was just really attracted to large cities. New York, San Francisco, I really want to go to Singapore. I have some friends in near Tokyo that I really want to go visit. And I just really love the energy of big cities, because I feel like there's just a lot of ideas and inspiration, and there's all of the negativisms that come with that too. But there's just something about that buzz of just people doing stuff that I'm really attracted to. So I'm sorry, I'm giving you tons of really long answers to short questions.
I mean, it's perfect, man.
I guess it is. So strap in if you're listening to this. These are really long-winded answers. You can imagine poor Sheldon gets these long answers when we're just talking in person too. So like, shout out to you for being super patient. But
oh, man.
So I was like, I'm going to be in cities because that's what I like. I like cities. I want to find places that have late night coffee shops and like artists doing shit and musicians and video people. I don't even know what we call ourselves. Are we videographers? Whatever we are, that make videos and films and whatever. I want to be around that. And so I can't really set my stuff up with a generator that's loud. I can't like have stuff that's like unfolds and takes up all this extraneous space. I need to keep it pretty compact and stealth. Not super stealth, obviously. I've got panels on the side of my van, but like stuff that's not like super obvious other than that. And because of the advent of a lot of electric cars, some of which already have panels on them, the panels on my van don't stand out as much as I thought they would. But so when I was like, how do I design my electrical system around that thought, that mentality? And I was like, I need multiple ways to charge up wherever I am and not be left stranded. Because to me, the worst thing is not missing a meal; it's not having internet. Serious, like not like I can't
Wow.
fire up my laptop because I didn't get solar today.
Yeah.
And that anxiety like drove me to just multiple obsessive hours of research. So what I ended up doing is I built my system around EcoFlow's Delta Pro battery system. Shout out to EcoFlow if you want to ever sponsor me in the future. So and the reason, and that's their biggest one right now, kind of. They just announced this new one that's coming out next year that looks amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But called the Ultra. But this is 3.6 kilowatts. So that's 3,600 watt hours. And then they have like an expansion system that you can triple that. I haven't
Wow.
I haven't been able to budget up. I've been able to double it. I did one expansion battery. I don't have a third one yet, but I might get one soon. But what that allows me to do is, number one, it includes all the stuff that you normally build in that one device. So like it's
Mhm.
got like a 3,500 watt AC inverter that is
Yeah.
like pure sine wave, which I need for my electronics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't want to charge your MacBook Pro up with a dirty inverter signal because you're gonna mess it up.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand like there are levels of cleanliness when it comes to power.
I actually didn't know about that until I also got my inverter. I had
Yeah.
no idea. Like, I had heard pure sine wave inverter.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was just like a cool thing to say,
Yeah.
like pure sine wave. It's like an actual, like,
Yeah.
there's a big difference between a pure. So if you're in the market, get a pure
Yeah.
sine wave inverter.
Yeah.
Don't buy a crappy one because it will mess up your stuff.
Yeah. People like Hobo Tech on YouTube, they'll hook it up to an
Oscilloscope or whatever.
Yeah, an oscilloscope, and you can see the actual shape of the sine wave, and that just matters, especially like for stuff like this for audio, because you'll get a whole bunch of janky buzzes and
Yeah.
different stuff. But anyways, so it already had a massive inverter.
Mhm.
I'm never gonna use 3,500 watts.
I can't remember. Do you have a microwave in here? Or
I have a microwave.
See, that's insane.
I have a microwave. I have an air fryer,
Wow.
and that's like 90% of my cooking is some combination of those two things. I have a little
Wow.
a little jet boil burner
Mhm.
that I can do water, and I can do popcorn, and I can do things with,
Interesting.
and I could, and I it has
with the jet boil like fuel tank.
yeah. So and I have like 10 of those little tanks, and that's like my ultimate backup. If I'm stranded in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
it's been raining, I got no power, I need to eat.
Yeah.
That's like I have like several levels of emergency.
When you use that, do you open your door or do you leave the door closed but turn your
No,
fan on?
because it's not like regular propane where you have to vent it. It's just like a little camping. It's a little camping burner, and they're a mix of different fuels. And even though they're a little bit more expensive, people use them in tents all the time. You know, you don't have to fully. And my Sprinter, God bless her, is not airtight. So it's not like one of those things where you're like, oh my God, carbon monoxide. No, and it's literally like, 10 minutes at a time. It's not like a heater where you really have to pay attention that you go to sleep and you never wake up. It's not like that.
Yikes.
But that's kind of like my little side cooking thing. And I say boil water, but I have a bougie Stag electric water kettle too.
Yeah, that water kettle is sick.
For my pour overs, because
I gotta get something like that too.
Coffee is life. And so yeah, I grew up in a restaurant family.
Mm-hmm.
So like I've been cooking since I was like 5, and my family owned restaurants and stuff. So
what kind of restaurants do they own?
So they sold them all when I was just going to college. So they haven't been in my life for far too long now. But they had a Mexican food chain, and I really miss it dearly. But
What was it called?
It was called La Fiesta.
La Fiesta.
Yeah,
I love that.
It had several locations spanning several decades, and it was a great experience growing up around that, and working from a young age, kind of developing a work ethic mentality, and then just having great food. The restaurants weren't making us rich. Like I didn't have like a spoiled lifestyle, but we always had really good food. And
Oh, I believe it.
and in my family, which is a racially mixed family of a mix of Latino culture, and my mom is white. She's German and Irish, but food is love in our family.
Mm.
So we didn't have a lot of money, but we had a lot of love and a lot of really good food. And that's like when you're having a really bad month and everything's going wrong with the family, my mom puts on a pot of chili verde, which is like pork and green chilies, and then like, you know, and she can make a pot of beans and Spanish rice, like with the best of them. A lot of people in LA don't know what great Mexican food tastes like. It's a whole nother controversial subject. But I've noticed some of these so-called high-end restaurants I've been in. I'm like, bro,
what do you think about
you clearly didn't make this rice from scratch.
What do you think about the taco stand down the street on like Alameda and like, what is it, 3rd? In the parking lot? That big one that's going every single night, late into the night.
No, that one's solid.
I love that one. That's my favorite one.
Yeah.
In like the downtown area.
Yeah, they have really good carne asada. And they have a lot of good stuff. They're good.
I love that spot.
They're good. There's also this little place by in the Arts District. I forget what street that is. By Blue Bottle, and they are like the only crunchy taco place.
Oh,
in this area. There's like a crunchy taco place in like Santa Monica or whatever that is, Culver, Santa Monica, called Tito's, which is famous. But there's nothing like really out here. And I think aesthetically speaking, a crunchy taco is superior to a soft taco.
Whoa, that is a hot take.
I don't care. I don't care if it's less authentic. I care that it tastes better in my mouth.
Ooh.
Anyways, that's my hot take.
Interesting.
One of many, I'm sure, today. But that place is called like Dorados or something like that. Really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the cooking stuff, like growing up in that kind of family, I was like, a lot of good chefs use microwaves. People don't realize in the restaurant culture, microwaves are used a lot, but they're not usually used the way people normally use them just in the regular home space. A lot of people just think, oh, you put it in the microwave and it's done. That's not typically how people that have been cooking a long time use microwaves. So like say, for example, we hypothetically have a Stouffer's French bread pizza that I may or may not have got recently on sale. So I don't have an oven. I'm not going to get one of those big giant space-taking oven things because I only have a 144 van, so I have to make choices, and I can't have everything yet in this van because it's short. You can park with it, which is great, but I want a 170 or I want an extended. Yeah. I have more room so I could put like a full shower and stuff in that just I don't have to set up every time.
Yeah.
Anyways.
That being said, you're doing a pretty good job with your arrangement of space and things in here. It blows my mind.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That actually means a lot. So when you're making a French bread pizza, you start it in the microwave, so it starts frozen and then you take the chill off. You start melting kind of the ingredients and the cheese and stuff, and it starts the texture, right? But then you finish it in the air fryer.
Oh,
so see what that does?
That sounds really good.
You get the best of both worlds. You get a lot of that bottom and center cooked from the microwave, and then the air fryer, which is just basically a compact convection oven for those in the culinary worlds know that's just blowing hot air around. That then suddenly, my French bread's got the right texture on the bottom, and my cheese and my ingredients got toasted on top. So I was like, okay, thanks, Mom, for teaching me how to cook, when I was a little kid, because now I got my little air fryer and my microwave. And I searched so long for this microwave because most microwaves are shaped wider than they are taller, so they're like rectangular.
Yeah.
My microwave is a cube.
That's sweet.
And Whirlpool makes this. They're the only ones I could find in America. In Asia, they have all the cool dimension stuff, but a lot of them don't run on the same electricity. And if you convert it, it's less efficient, yada, yada. But this was the only one I found. And it's like from 3 years ago. But I found this like company in Chicago that sells them new still. Yeah. Called ABT, I think it was. And they had them. And of course, it was like stupid expensive.
Yeah.
For like a micro that should have been $50, it was like $300.
You know what's funny about that is I think that when you're involved in building a van and in that community.
Yeah.
And you start thinking about the things that you need, like appliances, utility, like
Yeah.
little things that are normal life things you're trying to put into a van. You start beginning to imagine and wish for like, I wish they had, like I could find a fridge that was just this shape,
Yeah.
or a microwave that was this shape,
Yeah.
or a sink that like there could be a whole market of appliances specifically dedicated to van life stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's these quirky little dimensions that you have to work with where you're like, wow, I wish there was a more miniature version of this that worked really well.
And you're seeing that. Like, I mean, there's Dometics and there's like different places that are making like the 12-volt refrigerators.
Do you have a Dometic fridge?
No, man, I can't afford that. Like once I blew my wad on power production in the toilet, which was $1,000.
Do you have a composting toilet?
No.
What kind of toilet? Oh, you got the like the one that like wraps up your
the Laveo.
Yeah, that thing is tight.
The amazing yet environmentally questionable toilet system. Yeah, no, I actually love it. But once I spent all my money on that, like I didn't have money for like a name brand 12-volt fridge, so I got like one that was like $180, but it's been working, knock on wood. It's been working for over a year straight.
See, I spent a lot of money on my fridge.
Yeah, you have a nice fridge.
It's nice, but also too, so I got an Iceco dual zone fridge, so freezer fridge, but you can switch it up.
Yeah, this one's dual zone too.
Here was the problem.
This is the copy of yours, by the way.
The copy of the Iceco?
Yeah, I think the Vivor that I have is the exact copy.
How much did you pay for yours?
Like under $200.
Damn, I paid like $700 or $800.
And it has an app. And
I think I got ripped off. So with mine, here's what would happen.
Shout out to China,
dude, for real. Here's what would happen with mine. So if it was really hot, in my van, which happens all the time,
a lot,
it couldn't regulate. It couldn't hold those temperatures, and so what it would do is it would like super freeze one zone and then warm the other.
Yeah.
So one zone would go to like -4 and the other would go to like 60 degrees. So as you can imagine, that will really mess with your mojo in the fridge because
that can screw you up.
I had things exploding because it would like super freeze and then one side would be like not cold at all. So everything's gone.
Yeah.
And then I had a bit of like a blessing in disguise happen. I was experimenting with a plugging in an AC unit. We're talking like a regular AC unit that you would use in your home.
When you say AC, are you talking about air conditioning? Or are you talking about alternating current?
I'm talking about air conditioning.
Okay,
sorry. Thanks for the clarification. So air conditioning unit, like a plug-in, like 120 volt. Like,
you were just desperate, right? You were like, fuck, I need it to get cold in here.
I had one that was kind of small, and I was like, I wonder if my solar setup can run it.
Yeah.
So sure enough, it could run it.
Yeah.
Problem was the venting.
Yeah.
Just, it didn't work at all.
Yeah.
Like it didn't work at all. And then after I just gave up, I looked at my fridge and I realized that one of the zones had shut off.
Oh shit.
And it never turned back on. But I noticed that I never had that problem again of when it got really hot, the dysregulation.
Oh.
So now I have one zone that just isn't on.
Yeah.
But the fridge always stays cold.
Yeah.
Always.
So you just lost a freezer.
So I lost the freezer and now it just holds a bunch of Red Bulls that somebody gave me.
That's good though.
So now it's storage.
Yeah.
That is really underutilized because I should be keeping something better than Red Bulls in there. But I think I should have either I should have gone Dometic, or another thing I realized is I actually don't need the dual zone. I never have anything in my life that it needs to be frozen because I'm not really like an ice cream guy or even like I love smoothies, but like I took my magic bullet out and put it in my studio because I ended up just never using it.
Well,
so
what are your like kind of typical meals looking like then? Like what are you eating a lot?
I am the most basic.
Yeah. Well, I think we all have become that
person.
But everybody's basic is different. Okay. So that's what I'm curious.
So for breakfast, it's eggs. Like I just have a cast iron and I cook with propane.
Oh, see, that's nice.
Cast iron, I do eggs, spinach. Sometimes I'll throw some onions in there.
Yeah.
cut up an avocado. You know, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And then for dinner, I'll do like a pound of ground beef.
Yeah. So you're like literally cooking.
And spinach.
Everything, yeah.
And then throughout the day, I'll snack on like bananas and nuts.
Because your stove is permanent, right? Like it's
permanent,
like
yeah. It's
not
a Camp
something
Chef.
you fold up. It's like always there.
And it's a stove oven, runs off propane.
That's nice.
I love using the propane because the propane's cheap.
Yeah.
Lasts forever.
Did you build like a separate little tank so that it separates it from your cabin, the propane?
So what I did, so the propane is in the van. It's in like a 1 gallon tank that I refill.
Yeah.
Propane is heavier than air.
Right.
And
so
it's also like lower, and it isn't a cabinet. The cabinet's not sealed.
Yeah.
But
did you drill holes like in your floor or anything?
I didn't drill holes in the floor. But also too, the van isn't like airtight.
Yeah,
right. And I always turn it off. Then again, I have slept before with the valve still open.
Don't do this at home,
and,
kids.
You know, I'm still alive. I've never had a problem.
Yeah. Famous last words.
I've also never smelled propane in the car.
Yeah.
Like I've never been like, smells like propane in here.
Yeah.
So.
No, for sure.
So far, so good. And another thing too, like.
And I think real world is a lot different than like hypothetical, what could happen.
Yeah. Well, and in the hypothetical, I remember looking at somebody's RV recently and I saw like a big propane tank on the outside of it.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking to myself, like, man, if that thing caught on fire or exploded,
Game
doesn't
over.
matter if it's on the outside of the RV or on the inside, you're fucked.
Game
like
over.
The thing is done. So honestly, it's probably safer on the inside.
See, I like this justification. This is good. This is good. I do this a lot. So I respect.
Yeah, that's probably the thing about my van that's maybe like the most. That's an interesting line of questioning. What's the most risky thing?
Yeah.
This is actually, and I think that you have probably avoided this a lot potentially, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. The thing that I was the most paranoid about with my van is the wiring.
Yeah.
And I did a ton of research into how to properly find the right gauge of wire, how to properly connect things.
Fuses.
Yep, absolutely. I've heard horror stories. For one, I've heard about people lighting, like their vans getting set on fire because of improper electrical wiring.
Way more than propane.
Yeah. And also, too, since the wiring is behind like permanently installed ceiling and walls, it's like you can't just take that down. So once it's like you got to make sure that that's good. So that was the thing that I was the most concerned about and put in a significant amount of time and effort into making sure that I had it right. And then also too, when I like fully connected everything, a buddy of mine who's an electrician, like actually like we did it, like he did the final connections and like looked at everything.
Yeah. Give you a run through.
Yeah. But
no,
on yours, do you like, cause you have these lights that are very external. Do you have anything that's like wiring wise, that's like behind stuff that you can't remove?
So that is the exact thing that pushed me over the top to get the Delta Pro as opposed to build my own system. Was that exact thing. So when I'm designing my insulation, which is like perhaps one of the most controversial van life subjects, it's like, hey, like, let's talk about, are you pro-choice or abortion and insulation? They're like, people will tell you 1,000 different ways of how to insulate your van, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, being blessed on the West Coast, like, it's important, but it's not as important as, say, somewhere that is like extremely cold.
Yeah.
And or extremely hot, I guess, or extremely humid, more accurately. So there's a little bit less risk, I think, out here in California. But when I was designing my insulation, I went with Thinsulate. All of you insulation obsessionists.
I went with Havelock.
He went with Havelock. I went with everything in this van is artificial intentionally because that's what I love. I love cyberpunk artificiality. Space future, inject me with nanobots. Like that was a choice. But when I'm designing it, I'm like, okay, wiring, right? And I did the research. I did all of the I hours and hours of just figuring it all out, and I was like, this sucks. And it also welds the power station to my van. It like
Mm.
literally, like if I need to recharge my stuff, I got to take the van there. And I don't think I finished my point about the EcoFlow earlier, but this goes hand in hand with that. Is I didn't have to embed any power lines inside of my walls.
Mm.
So what I did is I just, thoughtfully and aesthetically, um, ran. I have one DC breaker box that plugs into the DC Anderson port. Let's get nerdy. In the DC Anderson port of the EcoFlow. So that runs everything DC, like my Max Air fan,
Yeah.
any little lights and thingamajiggers. That is DC to DC, just like as if you had made it from like Victron or something.
Yeah.
And then all of my AC inverter, I just have multiple lines that run from the back to the front, depending what little station I'm in.
And they're all like extension cord.
Yeah. So they're all like
style.
surge protected
Yeah.
extension cords with like a shit ton of outlets.
Yeah.
Because I don't use a lot of power at the same time a lot of times, but I have a lot of things that require an outlet.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So like your phone charger and your laptop charger, and then your PC, and then that I run Unreal Engine on, and then your MacBook Pro, and then a microphone this and a light that. And they don't have a ton of wattage, but they all need their own like outlet.
Yeah.
So I have like probably 25 different outlets throughout the van.
That's incredible.
In just different locations, based on what I need, because that was my priority.
Yeah.
And
I feel like it should also be noted too right now that like currently this podcast is being recorded on a Mac Mini that's plugged in directly to your system.
Yeah.
It's not a laptop. Like we are plugged in
Yeah.
to the Delta Pro. Like Delta Pro, right?
Yep, Delta Pro.
Delta Pro.
And extra battery.
So
yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, cool, right?
All this is running right now.
All of it.
Through the power.
And if you wanted to live stream it, I have T-Mobile 5G internet. We could be live streaming this from
That's true. We haven't even got to that part.
From anywhere.
That hack.
Yeah. But well, I don't know how much we should get into the hack. But
yeah.
But
I was surprised you mentioned it.
Yeah. But it's there. Let's just say it. But so the Delta Pro, like one of the reasons I wanted it was because I didn't want all the wires inside the walls, because this way if I need to run an AC line somewhere else, I just get some like tubing wire protector and I mount it on the outside like a spaceship does, right?
Yeah.
Because that's like the vibe that I want.
Yeah.
When people want like a more organic house feeling van, that doesn't really work. It might not look as good.
Yeah.
But I like exposed wire, electronics, like that's my vibe. And that was my vibe, by the way, in my loft in the Arts District.
That's cool.
Before the van. So I literally just took my room concept and I just kind of shrunk it and extrapolated it to what it would look like in a van. And people that had been to my place before, they know, they go, oh dude, you just like you have a mini loft now on wheels. But but the last thing I wanted to mention about the EcoFlow that was like the biggest plus for me besides the wires was that if it's raining, if I don't want to burn a whole bunch of diesel because it's expensive, I have other ways to charge it. I can plug this in to any EV car station, whether it's traditional EV chargers, which is what we call a J plug, or a Tesla charger. Everything but a supercharger. I can't do superchargers, but everything like the destination level 1, level 2 Tesla chargers and the regular J, I think it's 1772 plug, which is like, your Priuses and your Leafs and all the other ones.
Yeah.
I can plug into any of those into my system and charge at a remarkable rate.
Wow.
Charges my entire house system, which is over 8 kilowatts of power, my entire system. And I can charge that like in just a few hours at an EV station. And some of them are extremely affordable, like a couple bucks an hour.
Wow.
So for like $6, I can charge my whole system at max. And that's if I don't have a regular outlet. If I'm somewhere that just has a regular outlet, I can also plug it in
like a regular, like 120,
a regular
just
120
like somebody's
home
house.
outlet.
Yeah.
Charges at 1800 watts from that because EcoFlow is really good at that. And my whole battery, the battery system, it's got wheels on the back. and I made it in such a way that it kind of like slides into a docking area.
That's cool.
And then all I got to do is unplug like 3 or 4 cables that connect it to the van. And then the whole thing just rolls out, and I can just pull it out of the back of the van and roll it to a station or roll it inside of a house if I'm visiting somebody. And they're like, yo, bring your battery in, whatever, while you're here.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest thing, was I needed redundancy of power on the road. So I can charge from my alternator from the van, right? Like everybody.
What is your setup to do that?
So I, again, went completely against tradition for that, because most people do a DC to DC kind of setup where you're running from the alternator and then you're running your DC setup into the charger. But EcoFlows don't charge as fast through DC. They can, but it's like a whole thing. So what I wanted to do, I saw this guy, this old timer on YouTube. He was doing it with his truck, and he was just basically using an inverter, an AC inverter directly connected to his vehicle battery, his alternator and his vehicle battery, to provide a certain amount of wattage to his power system. So basically,
like a cigarette lighter style, or
no, like it's directly. So it's
okay. I think so you connect directly to the alternator, but you connect an inverter, like a DC to AC inverter.
Yes, and so it ends up not being as inefficient as it sounds, because everybody, the first thing there's, DC, if it's not DC to DC, you're losing so much power. And that's the first thing everybody says. But most of those people that say that have never measured it. Thankfully, I have. And I've never dipped above like a 9% difference. So if you're willing to lose 9% efficiency, you get a lot more watts. So sprinters, one of the good things about stock sprinters is they got unless you do aftermarket, they're not super beefy, but they're pretty beefy alternator. And I run mine very conservatively because I don't want to drain my battery, because sprinters have a parasitic draw like no other vehicle I've ever seen in my life. If you do not run a sprinter for like 2 weeks, like you better pray it starts. Like I don't know about your sprinter, but like diesel sprinters, like they leak power.
Interesting.
They just do. And I don't know if the brand new ones still do, but all of the older ones, we just leak power if you don't run, if you just stay parked.
Luckily, I haven't had that issue.
And I run diesel. You run regular gas, right?
Yeah, regular.
So that might be a little different, because it takes a lot of juice to fire up glow plugs in a diesel engine. But anyways, the amperage that you get from a DC to DC charger, unless you're buying like a really expensive big one, you're not getting a ton of watts. I can get up to 1,000 watts off my alternator to charge my EcoFlow. 1,000 watts from an inverter is a lot more watts than you get from a regular DC to DC charger. And before the stands of DC to DC chargers yell at whatever they're listening to this on, I get it. There's always outliers. There's exceptions.
Yeah.
There are really good ones that provide close to that. But this was like under $100, which was another motivator for me.
Wow.
And I don't use the full 1,000 watts, because that's playing with dice on your alternator a little bit. So I do like half that. You like 500 watts.
Where is it? Because
so it's under the driver's seat.
The battery.
No.
Or the connections.
The inverter.
The inverter's under your
and it's connected to yet another surge protected extension cord that just rolls out. I just basically pull out an extension cord from under the driver's seat, and it runs straight to my battery.
Okay, so you have to like make that connection intentionally when you're like,
it's not there all the time.
Got it. Yeah, I very intentionally didn't connect my system to my alternator.
Yeah.
Because of the warranty on my vehicle, I actually I wanted to keep those systems completely separate.
Yeah, there are some chances there.
But I also didn't know, like when people are making those setups, typically you actually do have to like flip a switch and like choose like, okay,
they have
now
like a kill switch. Yeah.
Now I'm going to be doing alternator power,
right,
as opposed to solar power. Like they actually change where the source of power is coming from.
Yeah.
I do know one guy who has a Sprinter van that he lives in, and he doesn't have any solar power, and he only uses alternator power.
Yeah.
Which I think
what kind of vehicle is it?
It's a Sprinter, or it's like a Dodge, like
a diesel.
It's a good question. I don't know if it's diesel or not. But it's like Sprinter style.
Yeah, okay.
But the thing is, in LA, we drive so much. Like this guy drives a lot for work.
Okay,
right?
cool.
And so he's just always got power.
Yeah.
Because he's always powering it, because he's always driving.
Yeah, that's nice.
Which I thought was kind of an interesting move, because I've never seen somebody do the van life and not have any solar.
Yeah.
At all.
I mean, that's a thing. I mean, I don't commute. Like I on shoot days when I'm working, I'm traveling. Otherwise, I'm always working from home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm editing here, coloring here. I'm uploading from my own system. I don't have to go anywhere. So I drive, especially in LA, the fewest miles possible. I do not like driving in LA, especially in a big Sprinter van.
I'm the exact same. Like my ideal is if I don't have to move my van.
It's like $6 a gallon for diesel right now. Like, and these old Sprinters, they need real number 2. You can't just go to every single station, because these older Sprinters, when you use certain percentage of biodiesels, they gunk up the lines and the plugs. So you got to try to look for the old unhealthy diesel. But luckily in the Arts District, which is by kind of some of this industrial area, there's like the old school number 2 diesel stations. So it runs these. Do
you go to the Valero down the street?
No, because that one also doesn't have the best fuel. There's this other one. It doesn't even have like a name. It's just like this. It's like this old tanker green sign place, but it's right by the freeway, and you can see all of like the lifelong diesel truck drivers that do deliver. You know, like the big giant tanker trucks. They all use this place. Yeah, and you're just like, okay, what's going on here? Like, this is the spot. And the guy, like, you can't even pump yourself. The guy has to come out with his clipboard, and then you give him the money, and he pumps it for you. It's super old school, right?
That's cool.
But the prices are a little bit cheaper than even Valero, which is great. But it's just expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I was like, okay, solar is going to be my number 1. My number 2 is going to be finding a random outlet or an EV station.
Mm-hmm.
And there are surprisingly free EV stations too. But
I believe it.
But the fun thing about LA is a lot of times people love to cut those lines for some reason.
Cut them?
Yeah. So like a whole bunch of the free ones, there's this app called PlugShare that I use sometimes to find, because people will be like, hey, there's an outlet here, there's an EV station here.
Yeah.
And I try to do as much as I can with apps. And you'll go to the free station and it's like there's literally no cable because somebody cut it. So
that's crazy. Like they cut it to like scrap the metal or something.
Who knows? Like just vandalism, rage.
Dude,
I mean, I feel the rage. I feel the rage. I have it too, but but yeah. So I wanted to have like a whole bunch of different systems of how to get this rig up and running.
Yeah. Have you ever run out of power?
No, never. Not a single time. I've gotten super low.
Yeah.
I've gotten to like 1%. And I even have.
Dang. I mean, that's pretty low.
Yeah.
You got 1% and you didn't run. You must have shut down like things though.
Well, no. Hey, when we had that time of rain where it was just raining nonstop in LA, and I was like, holy shit. Like, we're in the Pacific Northwest. Like, I was not getting, and I hadn't got my second battery yet. I'd only had my one main battery.
Mm-hmm.
I was struggling. And so, you know, you go through the triage series of like, okay, I don't need these lights on.
Yeah.
I don't need to charge this week.
Yeah.
I don't need to, I can put the fridge on eco mode. You know, I don't have ice cubes in there. Like, there's a lot you can do, you know, just like running a ship, like where you can go, okay, let's just focus on what's important. I don't have to put scrolling LED light signs. They don't need to be turned on, right?
Honestly, I feel like that's a subtle flex of your system. The fact that you can like,
thank you,
afford on a energetic level to like just have lights scrolling in the background. So sick.
Thank you. So yeah, so it got bad for a minute, but you know, I started working again. I started filming, and I was like, okay, what are some of the first budgetary things I need to do? So I beefed up the battery, and then I got another EcoFlow battery. If you look up there, there's another third satellite battery that's not plugged into anything, and that's the Delta 2. That has a little over 1,000. That has like I guess it's over 1 kilowatt, 1,028 watt hours.
Yeah.
And what that and that has a decent inverter on it too. It runs like 1800 watt inverter.
Okay.
So I can run my entire van off of that battery for less time.
Nice.
Because it's about maybe 25-30% the capacity as one of my Delta Pros.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like 12% of the capacity of my entire system.
Yeah.
So like the reason I got it though, number one, emergencies,
Mm-hmm.
because lithium, the new LiFePO 4 batteries, they last so long and they really can stay somewhat mostly charged for a long time. You don't have to be like the old school AGM batteries where you have to consistently keep them in a certain range.
Yeah.
So it's emergencies, but it's also what I use to run my stuff with. I have the system unplugged. So if I need to go to like an EV station,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to have the van right there. I can just plug my whole van into that little guy and it'll run it for a whole day.
Yeah.
Whereas my normal system without any solar will run it for a week.
Yeah. That's incredible.
And that's cooking too. That's not like making bologna sandwiches. That's like using the microwave, using the air fryer, having internet, all that stuff. But like I was trying to make this workflow because I'm all about workflow when it's like doing video stuff. It's always like, okay, the right handle for your camera, the right lens, the right grip, the right lights. You're always doing this. It's like an obsession with like tech and video people. And I love it. I hate it a little, but I really love it.
Yeah.
And so it was workflow. It was like, okay, so if I'm out with these two batteries are out of the van, I can run off of this secondary battery.
Mm-hmm.
But if things get really bad, I can actually charge my big battery up to 27% with my little battery and just take the 9% efficiency loss by using the AC inverter in that little battery and plugging that into the AC charger on the Delta Pro, the big one. So not the most efficient way, but if you're in the middle of a place where you don't have, it's raining or you don't have an outlet or anywhere that you can charge, I can get almost 30% of my system back, or well, now that I beefed up the system, like 12% of my system back just from that little backup guy.
Yeah.
And don't ask me how I know the exact numbers because I freaking had to do it. and I was like trying to have the awareness to be like, oh, hey, this is a really good time for you to document your numbers. Cause like in a van, I think it's really important to know where the limits are to everything you have.
Totally.
You know?
That's actually a big thing I would have done differently. Still could do, but there's a lot of things that I wish I could monitor, like have an actual number on.
Yeah.
For example, like how much propane is in my tank.
Yeah.
There's actually like a little meter you can get.
Yeah, those little sensors, right?
With an app, like a sensor you put on the tank and an app. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Same thing with my water tank.
Yeah.
Like I would love to be able to know exactly what the level is. I'm sure there's an easy way to do that too. For me, it's all feel.
Yeah.
Like I kind of just know.
Yeah. You have a big tank, right?
I have a pretty big water tank. It's 20 gallons.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your water tank?
Yeah. So I have a much smaller water tank. Do you have heated water?
No.
So I wanted here have you ever seen that triangle that that people in the creative industry post, and it's like good, cheap, fast, pick two. Have you ever seen that?
I think that's
so. If you want it
like
good
that,
and you want it cheap, it ain't gonna be
fast.
Yeah, and if you want it good and fast, it ain't gonna be cheap, right?
Yeah.
So hot water's like that.
Yeah.
If you want it hot and good, like it's gonna be expensive. And I didn't really have that, so I was like, okay, what can I do to kind of mitigate that? And so what I did, I only run about 11 gallons of water.
Okay.
So I've got a 3.5 gallon in the device, which I'll describe shortly, and then a 7-gallon backup tank.
Interesting.
And then a 7-gallon gray water tank. And they're all just under my sink. They're all very easy to just pull out. And that was the motivation, you know, it goes just like the power. I want it to be really simple.
Yeah.
Very energy efficient. That does as much as possible for the cheapest amount of money possible, but has a lot of flexibility, because that was my most important thing. Even more so kind of sometimes than the money was flexibility. So these portable shower systems from this company called Rinse Kit. I got one of their portable shower systems called the Rinse Kit Pro. It was like $300. Not
Yeah.
super cheap, but not expensive as like a really high-end water heater system.
Mm-hmm.
And it only holds like 3.5, 4 gallons in its own little tank, but it's a DC powered pressurized water system, all internal. The whole thing, it's got a handle on it. The whole thing pulls out.
Wow.
And I can move it anywhere. I could wash a car with it.
Wow.
And what I did is I put it under my sink, and then I attached it so it runs my sink, so I can wash dishes and stuff. But the cable is like an 8-foot cable, so I actually made it so it pulls out and then attaches to my ceiling for my shower. So I have a collapsible shower system that I run
here.
In here. That
Dude.
Yeah, and I'll describe that in a second.
That's crazy.
But like I needed it to do double duty. It can't just be to wash dishes. My water system's got to also run. And I've seen a lot of people do showers and sinks before. I'm not like pioneering some new thing. But I needed something that didn't take a lot of power. Mm-hmm. That gave me options and wasn't $1 million. And so Rinse Kit, they have this thing where they have a drop-in tube that you put in that is a water heater. And it's like a metal cathode type tube system, and it runs on DC though. And that was my big thing, is a lot of these systems, whether they run on AC, DC, I think really the only efficient one is the ones that run on propane. But I don't have any propane in here yet, like at all, which that might change. But right now I don't have that. And I was like, man, like I want hot water for and I'm going to totally be honest with you, 99.9% of the time I wash dishes with cold water because whatever.
Same.
Like, who's got the bougie lifestyle to have hot water? But for a shower, I'm not that OG all the time where I can just be like, I take motivational cold showers. I'm not Gary V, okay? Like if it's cold outside, I want a warm shower.
Totally.
And if I'm not by a gym or by somewhere I can take a shower, that's one of the things. So this thing uses DC power. I just plug it again into the EcoFlow, and it's not super fast because it's not high powered. So it takes about 45 minutes. So if I know I'm going to take a shower,
to charge up,
to heat up.
Okay.
Heat up. So if the water's room temperature or cold, to heat up, it's about 45-ish minutes after I plug it in. So I need to know 45 minutes in advance if I'm going to take a hot shower.
3 gallons or 7?
That will give me the like just under 4 gallons.
Just okay, cool.
And because the sprayer system has a trigger on it, it's not flowing the whole time.
Yeah, that's cool.
I control the rate of stream, so I take like a camp shower. You
lather
wet,
up,
you lather,
rinse,
done. It's done. You miss a spot behind your ear, oh well.
Yeah.
Van life. There's van clean and there's real clean and van clean. I've discovered that this year. But and so that keeps it really easy. And then I just have those like Aquatainer, whatever, 7-gallon tube cube tanks that you get for like Walmart for like super cheap. And I can just pull those out and fill my water anywhere. That was really important to me because I was like, how am I going to replace my water? Like, where do you replace your water with your big tank?
I got to have a friend.
Yeah, you got to have a friend. What do you do? Like a hose, right?
Garden hose.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I got a drinking water hose.
Yeah.
Ideally, I go drinking water hose straight to the spigot.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not long enough and I have to like connect it to their garden hose to the spigot, which I also have a filtration system, so I'm not. And I usually don't drink the water.
Yeah, I never.
But I do. I
never drink my water. That most I'll make rice with it.
Because you don't have a filtration system, do you?
No, but even at home when I lived in my loft down here, bro,
you don't drink that LA
bottled water. I brush my teeth with bottled water.
Dang, man.
I just have a whole thing.
Brushing the teeth with a LaCroix.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's fluoride and chlorine and lead. I don't like our tap water system.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Whole nother discussion. That's a different podcast, not a conspiracy podcast, I promise, kind of. But so I've always done bottled water.
Yeah.
No matter what. Now there's affordable ways to do bottled water. And there's less affordable ways, but
the affordable way is to get the biggest one.
Yeah.
Because that's your best bang for your buck and get it at Trader Joe's.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm not maybe consuming enough water. Maybe I should be drinking more water, but it's not an exorbitant expense.
Yeah.
I spend like $20-$25
Well,
a
you're
month on
also
water.
the thing about the van life too is you're saving. Ideally,
Yeah.
you're saving
Rent.
so much money
So much.
that you should feel free to reallocate that.
Yeah.
In other ways.
And
Like
I want
if you
bougie bottled water.
if you want bougie bottle, if you want that Fiji water
for my, well, I'm not that bougie. I'm still buying like Kroger store brand water, but yeah, no.
If you want that Equinox membership,
yeah, no. But so like the shower system, it just kind of worked out because so if you look at my ceiling, they're just like the little like spine wood wood strips, right?
Yeah.
So what I did is, those old school bathtub shower curtains,
Yeah.
the freestanding, what they call claw bathtubs, and then the shower curtain would just go around it.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw this guy on YouTube, which is, obviously that's like our new university for life.
Yep.
I saw this guy, he had kind of taken that concept and did it for his van. So I was like, oh, dope. Like, so I basically use shower curtain hooks that just hook over the top of my little wood panels.
Wow.
And they hold a shower curtain in a circle or like an oblong in the middle of my van. And then I just have a foldable like dog pool that's like a 16 inches tall dog pool. And the shower curtain goes inside that, so there's no splash.
Perfect.
And then the shower curtain goes all the way to the ceiling, and then I just run the sprayer from the sink. I have a little,
right over top. Yeah.
I have a little bracket so it hangs, so I don't have to constantly hold it.
Yeah.
And it hangs over in the center of the shower curtain. And then so they take a shower, and obviously it's not like the best situation because it takes time to set it up. It takes time to break it down. You have that water that you're standing in that you got to drain. But these new dog pools, dogs got it good nowadays. These new dog pools have a cool little drain system with a tube. And then I go drain it because I use only like biodegradable soaps and stuff. So I'm not like completely polluting. And I'll go dump that in a legally acceptable refuse and dumping station. And and that's the shower system. Now I will say, I don't think a lot of people are honest about this in the van community, but I take way less showers than I used to take. And I feel like, I kind of feel like I'm better for it.
Interesting.
Like, I feel like my skin has like responded in a way that I enjoy. I feel like maybe we do too much when it comes to, I get it. You go work out or you're sweating and you work. I don't work for a living. I film videos. So that's not like, I'm not like building houses and doing like real work or cutting down trees. Like I film video. So maybe I'm not working up like a giant amounts of sweat and stuff. But like, I feel like we like really do like a lot of harsh soaps and a lot of shower stuff a lot. And that's cool. Like psychologically, if you love a good shower, more power to you. I respect that. But like, I think health wise, there's something to be said about letting the skin, what did the term somebody was talking about it used? Like the flora, the natural flora of the skin has things that are important that react with like vitamin D in the sun and
interesting.
And we forget that skin's like an organ, like it's a part of our body and that whole thing. So I thought like I'd be freaking out because there's two areas in van life that freaked me out before starting it. After I feel like I had well planned for power, I was like, number one, how am I going to keep clean with showers? Okay. And then I realized that little system, and then I got a 24-hour fitness membership. And so I can shower there too. But I just realized I don't need to shower 6 times a week, and feel clean. But the other thing, and I feel like there's so much dishonesty in the van life community about this, is the toilet. That just freaked me out. Like on every level of ick, of cleanliness, of odor, of as graphic as you want to be in descriptors, the toilet system was like, I need to figure this out because I'm not getting Jim Pa's bucket and we're just going to handle our business. Or like so many dudes that I see online, I just go to nature. I just walk out and handle my business.
Oh, man.
And it's always these soliloquies of like, of these like metaphorical things they say about doing that. And I'm just like, no, bro, like I have fairly regular bowel movement. Let's TMI here. I have fairly regular bowel movement. I need restroom, and I need it to be available.
Yeah.
If I wake up in the middle of the night without grabbing like some random hose and some random bottle and some random situation that at some point, if I have guests in my van, that they smell those byproducts. So like that was really important to me, because this, above all other things, is a work van. It's a work van that I happen to live in, and my work just happens to be doing creative projects and videos and stuff. So it's able to format it in a little different. It's not like a plumber work van, which this van was before I bought it, but like it's a work van. And I want to have people to do podcasts like this, or a client that I'm working on a video for, which I had earlier today. And not one person's like, oh, wow, it smells like piss in here. It smells like number 2, like feces in here, right? And that was like, dude, I was freaking out about it. So obviously, if there's a coffee shop, if there's a restaurant nearby, you know, when we're not in the middle of the woods, because like I said, I'm in cities. I'm not in nature that much by choice. And so there are those places sometimes, but a lot of times there's not. Either they're closed, or it's just too early, or it's too late, whatever.
Yeah.
So I bought what we mentioned earlier, the Laveo toilet system, which is like, it's stupid expensive, but the toilet is not that expensive. It's the refills that are expensive.
How much is the toilet?
So I think I got it for like $900.
Okay.
And I got the black one, which is great. A newer color they did.
Nice.
But if anybody that hasn't seen the Laveo system, Laveo,
it's sick.
It like basically has a long tube of Mylar sheeting inside of the toilet cartridge, and it has a vacuum and then a motor in the bottom of the toilet. So every time you use it, it vacuums it down and twists and seals whatever you just did in its little unit. Yeah. And then you go again, it does it again, and then you get about, you know, if you're really conscientious about it, you can get 15 to 20 flushes.
No way, before you have to dump out the
per cartridge.
Wow.
So, but here's the rub. They come in packs of 3 cartridges, and after shipping and taxes, you're never getting out for less than $100.
Whoa.
So 60 flushes, that's if you're being conscientious.
Whoa.
If you're not being conscientious, you're only getting like 13, 14 flushes per cartridge.
Yeah.
And I've tested this.
Can you pee in it?
Yep. It's everything. That's the plus of the Laveo. It's completely moisture, liquid, and solid seals. And if you happen to be lucky enough to have guests that are of the feminine persuasion that use certain products that are usually not very compatible with a lot of van toilet systems, you know, hygiene products and stuff, all of those can go in the Laveo. Nothing, you don't have to worry about any of that. And that's the big upside to the Laveo. Yeah. And the Laveo doesn't smell, because when it seals, that Mylar blocks all the odor, like really well. Like it does it really well. But you're spending like $1 a flush, like a little over $1 a flush.
Yeah. How much? Okay, if you were to use it like the same rate you would use a normal toilet,
yeah, like just at home,
how much do you think you're spending a month?
Probably
$200.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, maybe not quite 100. Maybe like 130.
Honestly, if you're not paying rent, worth.
Yeah, but there in my first couple months of van life, we're on 8 months now, full-time van life.
Congrats.
Thank you. As of a week ago, 8 months. The first couple months, super lean financially, right? So I'm like, I'm figuring everything out. And you don't figure stuff out.
I can't afford to take a piss today.
Bro, right? But like, you don't figure out van life until you're in van life.
It's true. There's a lot of things that you learn on the go.
Right.
On the fly.
It's like that old saying, like, you know, best laid plans of mice and men or whatever. Like you can plan, but when you're in it, you realize the difference of the reality and then what you plan for.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy that process, but like the first few months, I'm like, I don't got no money. I can't buy refills that much. So other than making sure, and I'm not the type of guy, for better or for worse, I'm not the type of guy that can just go to any building on the outside corner and just, because there's all, hey, more power to you. If you've got that type of freedom that you can just go take a piss in the corner of a building outside your van whenever you want, awesome. That's awesome. I'm not really that guy.
Yeah.
I have to make sure like I'm cleaning my hands after every time growing up in the restaurant industry with my family
It's
owning
ingrained
restaurants,
in you.
I have to clean my hands every time I use the restroom.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's just number one. That grosses me out, and I'm a little bit of a weird germaphobe like that. So I have, a shit ton of like handy wipes and that kind of stuff that I need to clean every time. So without being able to do that, I was like, bro, like, how can you afford this right now? I can't buy the Laveo stuff. But then this is something I do with every single facet of my van life and literally every facet of the rest of my life. And it's like I learn like life lessons from like the most unusual places. Have you ever seen that movie Big Hero 6?
No, but that sounds so
So it's an
familiar.
animated movie. I forget who does it, if it's like Pixar or one of the animation studios. And it's this kid and his older brother, and he loses his older brother, and it's super sad and happy and great. And he has a robot, and he's a big puffy white robot. And that's like I believe Big Hero 6. And so like it's a great movie. If you've never watched it, I highly recommend it. But there's a statement where he's trying to figure out this problem. I think the kid's like a whiz engineer, right? And he goes to school for that, and he just can't figure out this problem. And there's like a whole musical number that his brother helps him with about looking at things from a different perspective. And a lot of people say that. A lot of people go, "Oh, we just gotta take a step back and look at it from a different angle, a different perspective." And I get it, but I don't think it became real to me until I was able to be like I really need to figure this out. And every way that is the traditional way of doing something or the way I'm doing it is completely not working.
Yeah.
And so that movie, in the movie, the way the kid solves it is he's hanging upside down and he's literally looking at it from a different angle, and he figures out the problem. But that always stuck with me. So anytime I have like a problem where there's not a pre-built way to do it, I'm like, okay, I need to look at this differently. So when I'm looking at the Laveo toilet, I'm like, I can't afford the refills, but what can I replace the refills with? And the great thing about that situation is it's built really well. And it has like multiple layers of redundancy in it. So like you've got the toilet that looks like a normal house toilet. I love that we're really going into this, but people don't talk about this in van life. And
I think it's good.
It bothers me that they don't.
It's an important conversation to have.
Because I wish, and I'm glad we're having it. It's something that is important. So it's built like a really good toilet first, but then internally there's a secondary like big octagonal bucket that spins. It's on this motor, but it's big, and it's completely like contained within the toilet bowl. And so that whole thing removes and comes out. So like if there were an accident or something were to happen where the cartridge tear or whatever, everything's still in that bucket that you could take out and deal with, right? Because I needed that. The most horrific thing I could think of with this van is that some sort of bucket of urine or feces spills on my floor, and it literally I don't even want to ask you the way you just said that, because I know I feel you, but like I've been up several hours at night thinking about how do I not ever have that happen, and knock on wood, it's never happened. But like this takes planning, right? So I was like, okay, cool. Laveo did their thing with this whole design, but I was like, bro, I don't need the twisty Mylar expensive sealing thing all the time. So what I did is I found two things that work, but one of the main things I worked is I made a de facto urine diverter by just getting a short but wide and deep Tupperware. right?
Okay.
That's like opaque, so you can't see through it.
Yeah.
And you could just put it in a bag or whatever. Some people I see these girls, these like really cute girls doing van life, and they just like, oh, I just threw it in my tote bag. To me, again, that's gross because I'm like, I don't want my pee bottle touching a
That's
reusable tote bag
funny.
because I'm weird. They're not weird. I'm weird. So I'll just use like a grocery handle bag, like from, wherever, food for less. And so that goes literally inside. I just put that inside my Laveo toilet.
Yeah. And
because it's flat on the bottom, the Laveo, it sits wherever you put it. So it's at the exact right positioning for me to do my business. And I don't know what van lifers need to hear this, what alpha van lifers need to hear this, but it is totally cool and superior to sit down while you pee in your van. Okay.
If there's anybody standing up while they pee in their van, that they're not peeing into a bottle, because that makes sense if you're standing up.
Yeah.
That's
otherwise,
just bizarre.
But otherwise, yeah. There's splatter. There's a lot, right?
Yeah.
So that's that. I don't have to go number 2 a lot compared to how much you gotta take a piss, right? Like that's a lot, which is why people do the whole funnel bottle system, right? And I get that. And so once I got that little tank in there, and I have 2, I have one so that I can like pop one in and then change it out just in case like I'm in an area where I can't immediately dump it out. I have 2, so they rotate just like everything else in here. There's redundancy.
Yeah.
And
love that.
And so in that bucket in the toilet, that's also lined with a regular Glad kitchen trash bag. So that's my redundancy. So if something spills out of the urine diverter,
it's still wrapped up.
It's in the waterproof thing, right? Because I need that. And then in that tank, there's a secondary bag that this is so much detail, but I just feel like it's important. There's another bag behind the urine diverter in the toilet that handles like the stuff that you like wipe with, basically. And that goes in its own little trash bag inside the toilet every single time. And that just stays sealed until I dump that. But I just wanted to do that. So if I do need to go number 2, the urine diverter tank comes out and I literally just put a secondary trash bag inside the toilet. So it has 2 now in case one fails, because, but even in case both trash cans fail, there's still a bucket in there that ain't going to leak. That's a 1/4-inch plastic bucket. That's not leaking.
Yeah.
But you go number 2 and then you don't leave it. Once you do your business, it's got to get thrown away like immediately.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I'm just like, I can find a trash, and it's legal to throw away your own feces in a normal trash can. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas like dumping a big tank of it, maybe not so much. That's a little different, right? But a public trash can like is fine if it's just a small little thing, because it's like there's no difference between that and the dog.
I mean, hey, we're downtown LA.
Yeah, and
people are taking a shit on the street.
Yeah, and I'm not
in
doing
front
that.
of people. Yeah, no, I mean,
and God love them. God love them. More power to them. I don't know your life. You might have had a hard life, but like, there's no difference from what I'm doing from like a dog dropping that you're picking up.
Totally.
And so that was my whole system. And obviously I don't do it all the time. But that was like super important for me to figure out. So like after the $1,000 investment, now if I have clients in here, or if I ever get lucky enough to date again, which I don't know if that, I'm like on sabbatical from dating. Like I haven't met like, I don't know, like a chick that I vibe with in such a long time.
So
I don't even know what that life is right now, but it'll happen.
Ain't nothing wrong with that either, man.
It's why I can afford all this crap.
There we go.
Maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know. But once you get over the investment of the toilet, you have kind of like a system now that has options. And I think that's kind of the theme that this whole thing has been built on. It was just like, okay, if you can't do it one way, try it a second way. If you can't do it a second way, what's the third way? So on and so forth.
I think that's a really helpful approach to take with the van life, because there are so many things that we just take for granted when you're living in a house or living in an apartment.
Yeah.
And suddenly you realize what all of those things are.
Yeah.
And they're usually surrounding kind of your most routine
Oh, yeah.
things
Yeah.
like going to the bathroom,
Yeah.
running water,
Yeah. Like I was telling
heat, cold, like
dude, I was telling my friend, it's like living on a farm. Like my mom's side of the family, like maybe 2 generations up, they were all like Missouri, Kansas and Missouri. And they had farms and stuff, right? So you'd hear these stories like from my grandma and stuff, and like they had tons of chores, just tons of stuff that you had to do every
Yeah.
day to keep the farm running.
yeah.
And I feel like this is like a mini, not as hard version, but a mini version of what farm life is. Because every single simple thing I do, I have 2 or 3 steps that it involves, whether it's pulling stuff out, putting it away, breaking it down.
Yeah.
So like something for really easy that we take for granted, like washing dishes.
Mm-hmm.
So you're at home, you wash dishes, you just go in, you pop some soap, you wash it, you put it in the rack, you're done.
Yeah.
Not so in van life, sir. In van,
Well,
I mean, it is, but it's like there are things to take into consideration though.
yeah.
So I got the sink. I got a nice sink with a little cutting board lid like a lot of us have. But the first thing is I can't just willy-nilly put my dirty plate in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pre-cleaning process that happens before I wash my plate. I need to scrape off food from my plate into the trash can. So crumbs, slimy, whatever I was adventurous enough to eat,
Yeah.
that's got to get scraped off into the trash before it goes into the sink.
Yeah.
And whatever if I don't do that, that's going straight in my drain.
Do you use, on a side note, do you use grocery bags as your trash bags?
Sometimes if I'm really feeling bougie, I'll get the little 13-gallon, 11-gallon trash bags. You know,
because
but a lot of times I do. Yeah.
Trader Joe's bags are like my go-to trash bags.
See, and there's not a Trader Joe's real close to here, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's true. There's gonna be though.
Yeah, there's gonna be.
I think there's gonna be one on Alameda and Industrial.
I feel grossed out by how excited I am about that. but yeah, so I do sometimes, and I definitely use grocery trash bags for the previous conversation with the Laveo.
Yeah,
because those are thick.
Yeah,
you just got to make sure. I always have to check
those
them.
Ralph's bags.
Yeah, the Ralph's bag thick. So I'm just, like, with 3 C's. Thick, but I always make sure there's no holes in the bottom.
Yeah, watch out.
Ask me why. Don't ask me why. But so like with the sink, like you're doing something simple like washing dishes, you're like, no, you got to scrape the food first. Okay, that's not totally different than a house sometimes, or if you have a dishwasher, you do that at home, I guess. But the next thing is, I got to be real conscious about how much water I'm using to wash the dishes. Like I can't just spray it on there all freaking like caution to the wind. Like I got to use like a little bit of water. Yeah. Because like your tank is bigger, so you don't probably have to think about this as much. But with like 4 gallons at a time in my little 10-gallon tank,
that makes a big difference.
I'm doing like light spray.
Yeah.
And then I'm washing, and then I'm kind of like the whole shower system, and then I'm rinsing. But like I have to think about that. So then I have to think, okay, well, how much water are we using, and is there power in the little water system? Did I remember to plug that in and charge it? Is everything going down the drain? Did I miss a spot? Is there food that's going to get yucky if I leave it in that drain? Is my gray water tank going to smell if I do that? How much water space?
Which, if it does, pour some hydrogen peroxide in it. Does the trick.
Yeah. Hydrogen, I found out hydrogen peroxide, and then I found the wonders of vinegar. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Vinegar, dude. Talk about to just cap off that previous gross conversation about number 1s and number 2s. Urine. If you put a splash of vinegar, you know, just your normal cheap distilled white vinegar, you put a splash in that of whatever container you're using for your urine, and your smell just went down 1,000%.
Really?
Because it was bro, it was gagging me using a urine bottle.
Yeah.
Because every time
gnarly.
I opened it, I was
pretty
like,
gnarly.
Whoa, that ammonia, right? Well, chemistry turns out a little splash of really inexpensive vinegar, and 95% of that smell is gone. And it just stays intact. Inside the bottle, you're not having to worry about it. And so not only is that great when you're using it, but it's really, really great when you have to dump it, because now when
It's
you
not going to smell.
it doesn't smell.
Interesting.
It's not stinking up the whole bathroom wherever you went in to go dump it or whatever.
That's a pro tip right there.
Pro tip, a little white distilled vinegar that's like $1.60 for like a big bottle of it that'll last you a month. Dude, and vinegar does so many things. Like
You also clean with vinegar too.
Yeah, you can clean. You put a little bit in your laundry. Shout out to TikTok hacks to putting a little vinegar.
What does it do in your laundry?
It takes a whole bunch of stains that are hard to get out.
Whoa.
And it's chemical free because it's vinegar, and it's amazing. So tons of things, and you can also help your gray water tank with that. But hydrogen peroxide, if you're bougie, like Sheldon.
Hey, hydrogen peroxide is pretty cheap. It's like $2.
No, you're right.
If vinegar is $1.60, it's $2.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right. So there's a lot to like take into consideration when you're doing
Plus, you can
simple
rinse
things.
your mouth out with hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah. No, there's a million, and I'm learning like all these old school things that like your grandparents knew.
Yeah.
But like we have to like relearn, as adults or faux adults, whatever our generation is, and
we're the new pioneers, man.
We are, bro. We are.
In a real way. I feel like the van life, it kind of harkens back to this, almost like
Pioneer days.
Pioneer, Oregon Trail days. Like
I feel like that. I do.
Except for we're branching off into like, instead of just St. Louis to Oregon City, it's like all like, it's kind of like getting out of the cities.
Yeah.
It's almost this like the opposite kind of, well, I guess still leaving a city to go somewhere else, but just it's not unidirectional. It's all over the place. And it's not just all over the States. I mean, it's all over the world.
Yeah, a lot of freedom.
Van life in Australia, van life in Europe, van life in Canada, van life in America.
And I've seen like some people ship their van. That's got to be expensive.
I've heard about that. It sounds very expensive.
Because I know some people rent while they're in another country.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
And that can't be cheap. But it's got to be cheaper maybe than shipping your van. I don't know. I guess it depends how long you're there.
Yeah.
If you're there for a couple weeks, probably not worth it. But if you're going to go for a year, you're going to live in Tokyo for a year.
Van life in Tokyo.
Oh, dude, van life in Japan. I got so many of my ideas from van lifers in Japan.
Okay. Have you seen, there is a little Suzuki, I think it's a Suzuki car. It's like a camping van.
Yeah, I think I know the exact one you're talking about. And usually browns or beiges.
It looks like a lunchbox.
Yeah.
It's that tiny, but it's a 6-seater.
I love those.
It's already done. Like all the camping stuff for it is done.
Yeah.
And it's all-wheel drive, and it gets like 30-something miles to the gallon. I knew a guy who had one. It was the coolest thing, and he bought it for like 6,000 euros.
Dude.
And it was already done. It was already ready to go.
Yeah. Don't even get me started about all the laws
Those things are tight.
in America that prohibit bringing those vehicles here.
Well, he brought one here.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Oh, but like the process.
But they have to be a certain year range. You have to go through this whole JDM process to get it permitted so that you can register it. It's a thing.
Man.
That's the beginning. Well, not the beginning, but it's just another sign showing you like, oh, who runs our laws, bro? Like they want people burning oil, buying gas, because those things do everything.
Well, so on that note of burning oil, buying gas, one thing that I'm really curious about with van life is the transition into electric.
Yeah.
And
absolutely
what the future has in store for people who currently are in diesel and gas vans. What's the lifespan? When is there going to be a day when they're like, these suckers are not allowed on the road anymore?
Yeah.
Is that 10 years in the future? Is it 20? Is that just too far to predict? Like,
well, it's already hard for me to find fuel, like I mentioned earlier.
That's really interesting.
At least in California, it's really hard to find the right number 2 because all diesel number 2s are not made equal. And any old van mechanic head will tell you, oh, if you use this one, like it's going to gunk up this, it's going to do that, it's going to eat your seals, it's going to, all this stuff, a whole nother rabbit hole. But like, so I don't think it's going to be that long, unfortunately. I think
10 years.
Yeah, probably 10 years. Now, I think you'll still be able to operate, but like, how hard is it?
Right.
Because it's going to be harder and harder to find to find the right
gas
fuel
stations, the right fuel
without severely modifying your engine, I think.
Yeah.
And so my goal for this van was I only needed to, my pilot plan is like 24 months about, maybe, yeah, about 24 to 36,
Interesting.
24 to 36 months in this van.
And then sell or rent it out?
No, probably sell and
Okay.
change to a new van. And I,
An electric van?
so yeah, so like I'm a little bit ahead of schedule. Like I said, we're 8 months in. Work is starting to pick up, and now I'm
Mhm.
starting to see over the horizon a little bit. So maybe in 2024, I might be in a situation where I can change vans. And
Interesting.
that is a cool thing, by the way. Side note about van life is that when you converted a van and it's
Van
aesthetically,
Lives. Sounds
yeah,
like the reality show.
Welcome to Van Lives. You think you know? You have no idea. Toilets.
The Real Housewives of
Yeah.
Van Lives.
Yeah. Okay. Don't give away all your show ideas, dude. These are your pitches right here.
Oh my God.
But like these hold their value pretty well.
Mhm.
So like I bought this for 12 after it's been converted
Oh,
and
it's worth so much
insulated
more.
and yeah, and so now I can like get a decent nickel to do another van with it, and so that's my goal.
You could
Is
sell this for 80 at least.
I don't maybe think quite that much because it's on an 07, but more than 12.
Well, it depends like what you chose to keep in here electronic wise.
Yeah, and I probably would keep a lot of the electronics in because I think the new system will be built around a new system
Mhm.
also. So we'll see, but I think it'll be definitely enough to get into a new van.
Yeah.
And I kind of enjoyed the process of building it.
Mhm.
It was very tedious and a lot of work, but there are certain aspects of it that really fed my like creativity
Yeah.
and I really like that. So and there's a lot that I know I could do better the second time.
Yeah. Side note,
Yeah.
where did you actually build the van? Did you build it right here where we are?
So there's this coffee shop across from my place. And I used to film their social media, so I had a good relationship with them. And there was like all these parking spots in front of their place, and then there was like a dead 20 feet that you couldn't park. It was red curb.
Yeah.
So when I faced my sliding door to the dead spot,
Mhm.
it gave me all of the access that I needed to bring in and out big things.
Oh, interesting.
And so what I did is I super stealth built all of it in that coffee shop parking lot.
Wow.
And I tried to be smart. Like I didn't do anything loud,
Yeah.
late or early. And but there aren't any like super really close residences. The places that are above the coffee shop, they have really well like insulated and double pane glass windows because there's a lot of like traffic noise from the street. It's third is like a main street there. So as long as it wasn't like super late or super early, I got like my stuff all done right there. But it was
Wow.
hard doing it like that because
Yeah.
I
I
literally
can only imagine.
and I was literally only like a month and a half into building it that I had to move into it.
That's rough.
And then that's where I was like, oh crap, this is really hard.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, get insulation done, get a bed done.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, I can live now. Get bed because I need to be able to lay down
Yeah.
and I need to not like freeze or die of heat. And once I got those two things, I was like, I can start doing everything else.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any money left from after buying the powers and stuff. So like I had like a lot of, for better or for worse, I love IKEA. I just love IKEA. I don't care. I've been a part of the IKEA hackers group on Reddit for a long time. And I just am fascinated by people taking an IKEA product and turning it into something else.
Yeah.
I just have been fascinated with that.
Yeah.
So I was like, bro, I'm going to do that because I have an IKEA bed. I have some IKEA cabinets. I have this different stuff. And, I think the newer stuff maybe is not quite as cool as they're doing something there that maybe is not quite as cool as they were the last few years. Because
Mhm.
like 10 years ago, IKEA is just making cool shit and it was
Yeah.
inexpensive.
I love going to IKEA.
Yeah,
It's
and-
such a fun experience.
And you get always like the
free coffee too if you remember.
Yeah, free coffee is great. And you get all the super easy meme about like getting everything taken apart with a bunch of screws and stuff. But that aside, like I just always like the design aesthetic, and it's compact and it does a lot. So anyways, I was like, I need to turn my regular IKEA wood bed that's made out of real wood. It's not a veneer IKEA bed. It was just one of their cheap, I think it's like pine or whatever, or cedar. And I was like, I need to turn my regular bed into a Murphy bed, which is like a bed that folds up into the wall, right?
Which is right behind you right now.
Right behind me. And I was like, I saw this one dude who built a storage bench, and he put his bed above the storage bench, and then the bed partially, a lot of the weight of the bed is on the storage bench. So that if you look at the corners are just these little legs that come out, and they support the far end. But I was like, bro, I gotta just turn this into a Murphy bed.
Yeah.
And that just, there's a certain level of like no going back on things like furniture and vans and stuff where you're just like, well, I got to cut into it.
Yeah.
Like when you first put in did you do your air fan?
I did. That was the first job I did on my van, which was the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life because it was a brand new van.
Yeah. And when you first cut into your van, that feeling, you don't know that feeling until you've done it. And then you're just like,
I stood up there for probably an hour measuring, remeasuring, like the measure twice, cut once.
You're like,
I probably measured 5 times. I looked at it 20 times.
Oh my God.
And then there comes a point where you're like,
yeah,
I got to do it.
Because there's no going back. Once that blade goes in, unless you're like, get a welder,
man.
like, that's a whole thing. And it was like similar too. I was like, well, I'm going to, on a lower pressure, I was like, well, I got to cut my bed up.
Yeah.
And I just started cutting my bed up and buying hinges. But it literally was like I said earlier, an extrapolation of a lot of what I did in my normal house. Cause I was always trying to save space to make room for filming, to do green screen work, to do commercial work or whatever. So this was just building on that. But all my furniture in here is like modified normal furniture. So like these cabinets up here, they were actually like one dresser unit that I cut.
Wow.
That I literally cut in half down the middle. And then put side by side, and then attached a frame on the inside.
See, your building process was probably so much more, just way faster than mine because of that. Because I built everything from scratch.
Yeah.
Which had the
I did nothing from scratch. Not one thing is from scratch.
It's like pros and cons. Like, I love your setup. Your setup looks sick and it's super functional, and you saved a lot of time by just using what you already had, which is amazing. Mine, everything is like custom to the dimensions that I wanted. Which is nicer
though. And it's bespoke.
It's very bespoke. Absolutely.
I mean, you go in.
I spent a year building mine before I even lived in it.
Yeah.
Because I bought mine in July of 2021.
Yeah.
And I moved into it September 1st of last year, 2022.
Yeah.
So I spent over a year.
Yeah, I didn't have that kind of time
building it.
I had an angry landlord, and I had only a certain amount of money and a certain amount of time, and I was under the gun. So I was like, how can I do this? Like, if the world were ending, how would I do it? And that's kind of was unfortunately my mentality, because in a way that world for me was ending. And I was like, okay, so let's repurpose this, take this apart, make it into that, make this fit into that dimension, make these cabinets there. The shelf above the cab that you're sitting under right now is a door.
I love this. I'm going to take this idea because I need to do the same thing. Like, this is just a way better use of the space.
It's just a door. And I saw how people were stabilizing them on the sides and how they were bolting to what's already there in the frame. And once I figured that bracket out, I was like, fuck it, let's just cut this door that I found for free.
Yeah.
And just put that on there. Now, I got lucky. The door color kind of matches everything. So it kind of looks like it's meant to be, but all of my stuff and like my wood and stuff, it's like inexpensive. We're not dealing with like oaks. The furring strips on my ceiling are like the 67-cent furring strips from Lowe's. They're not treated.
Yeah. Also, that's a way easier way. It looks cool, and it's way easier to do that than tongue and groove.
I've heard horror stories about
Holy
tongue and
shit.
groove.
Tongue and groove looks beautiful.
Yeah. It's
when
gorgeous.
I look at my ceiling every night, I'm just like, this is so beautiful. But at the same time, like, we're talking not hours, we're talking days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Days that went into just that.
Yeah. And are you doing most of this by yourself or you have help?
So I had a lot of people who helped me at various points in time.
Yeah.
But I did everything myself.
Yeah. Same.
You know,
Same.
Like I had somebody who helped me the first time fitting my tongue and groove.
Yeah.
But I took it down and then put it up again myself after I had finished it.
Yeah.
So I sanded it, finished it.
Yeah. Dope.
And I was like, damn, it's just me.
That's it.
I don't even know how I did it, to be honest. Like,
right?
I'm thinking back.
Propping and balancing things.
Yeah, literally like planks on my head and like.
Yeah.
Oh,
Gotta
it's
do it.
Crazy.
I love that.
With another person makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And I did have another person for the majority of my van build. I had a friend who was also building out his van.
Oh, wow.
So we built our side by side in the same shop.
That would have been so.
And that helped tremendously.
That would have been so helpful.
Also boosted confidence because he was like very gung-ho about cutting into his car.
Yeah.
Like he was so down for it. You know who you are. John, shout out. And I think, we did his roof vent first.
That's cool.
And so having been part of that experience, it gave me the confidence to be like, all right, I'm going to cut open my van right now. Cut a big old hole in the top.
You're lucky. See, that's great. Because I was like, man, where do I place it?
Yeah.
There's these other ribs up there. I got to avoid that.
Do you like where you placed it?
Yes and no. I like it because I only put one fan in. So if I'd put two, I would have put it in somewhere else. But I just couldn't sacrifice the solar space.
Yeah.
So I can only do one.
That.
And but I was like, I want to put it on the opposite end of my front windows because my thing is like 99% of the time I'm keeping the cab area open to the back.
Yeah.
Because I want this to feel like the most amount of space possible in a small 144-inch wheelbase van.
Yeah.
So cracking my front windows with the Van Essential type coverings, window coverings, which I did not want to spend like the $200-300 for those coverings, but oh my God, they've been worth every cent. They're magnetic.
They look so clean.
They're just, it was
so
really
good.
worth it.
Yeah.
Shout out to him. But so the airflow from those front windows with the little rain gutter guards, you know, and then that fan, and it gets me decent. Obviously, like it's a metal box. So when it's hot outside, and I put a ton of insulation. I bought Thinsulate and Reflectix, did the whole dual layer, and I won't even get into the process because I know like that is so controversial in the community. But Thinsulate for me was the way to go. I spent a lot of money on it. So it is well insulated mostly, but a van's still a van. Yeah. And you can insulate the crap out of it, and you're still going to be, because there's glass in the front.
Yeah.
You're going to be susceptible.
You need a legitimate air conditioning unit.
That's my next buy, by the way.
Outside.
That's my next purchase is an air conditioner.
I've actually heard about ways of mounting a unit underneath the van.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah. I'm totally not going to do that because it's just way too complicated for me.
Yeah, it sounds really intense.
And the units that they use tend to be the expensive units. Yeah. Like the Dometics and stuff, those things are expensive. And a lot of them, like it's hard to run off battery. You have to run off of shore power or generator or whatever. Yeah. So because I want to play up my strengths to the van. So one of the slightly negative aspects of this van is it's small. It's like I said, it's a 144. Yeah. Right? As opposed to a big 170 extended, whatever, Revel, all those amazing vans that I drool over. I don't have that. So what do I have? I have a small...
You just reminded me of something, but we'll come back to it.
So I have a small area. So play to your strengths. If you have a small area, it doesn't take as powerful of an air conditioner and vis-a-vis a heater to heat and cool your small area if you've well insulated it. And I have. So I'm going to buy the heat exchanger air conditioning unit that EcoFlow makes. And I've
I
designed
think I've seen that one.
I've designed a system where it's going to go above my toilet in the back corner,
Okay.
but then the duct is going to point right like at my head. So when my bed's down,
Yeah.
the vent's going to go right at me. So if I'm laying down, because to me, this summer, the worst part of my entire life was it was 90 degrees outside. I was laying in my bed and I was just a pile of sweat.
Yeah.
And I was like,
That's interesting.
I was like,
Because your bed is lower than mine.
Yeah.
I noticed a big difference in the
Because
height.
you go back, right? Perpendicular from side to side.
Yeah. But the thing is, my bed is really high.
Yeah.
It's like 10 degrees
you have like your trunk
hotter.
underneath there, right? Yeah.
It's like 10 degrees hotter in my bed
yeah.
than if I'm sitting on the floor.
Dude,
I can feel that
noticed
temperature difference.
I had to crawl under my bed. So the bed only goes where the storage thing is, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'd forgotten something that was stored underneath, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta grab it." So I had to army crawl under my bed to open that cabinet.
Yeah.
And oh my God, it was so cool
Way cooler.
underneath my bed on the floor.
Yeah.
So that might be the solution.
But
Maybe
you're gonna have the EcoFlow like blowing cold air on you
on the bed, yeah. And because it jacks directly into the Delta Pro using only DC, you don't lose that 9% efficiency that we talked about earlier.
Sweet.
And it can run a long time. And if you don't ask too much of it, if I had a big van that wasn't well insulated, or even a big van that was well insulated, it probably wouldn't do much.
Yeah.
But I can get a good 10, 15 degrees out of it one way or the other in this small area.
Where are you going to vent the hot air?
So I'm going to cut a hole in the van. When I first get it, I'm going to just use the front window.
Okay.
Because they give you this template.
Not the Air Max?
No. So the Air Max I'm going to leave alone as is. And I'm actually going to get one of those little insulating pieces that you block it with so that it doesn't lose air when I'm trying to be cold.
Yeah.
Or hot, I guess. Airflow, that's a whole nother thing, though, that scares the shit out of me, because mold in a van, I can't think of much worse than getting mold in your van. Which is why I did insulate, by the way. But no, so in this top left corner over here, where this backpack is hanging by the lights, the wave is going to mount up high this way.
Yeah.
And I'm going to actually move this panel to that side.
Okay.
And so what will happen is the ducting will point straight down right here. And so the hot air will vent straight out the van. And I'm just going to put a security grate on the outside.
Nice.
And one of the benefits to doing something like that is that the tubing that carries the hot air is really short, because a lot of people that use this unit and they complain about it, is because they don't understand that you're getting a lot of heat back into your room from that extended tube.
Right, because it's going to come out. It's going to be like radiating
and
from
it's
the
not
tube itself,
insulated.
Right? Yeah,
so
exactly.
At worst, you got to put I've seen some people just throw a towel on there, and that makes it a little bit better. But people have those little insulated tube cozies, and that helps. But if I can keep the whole tube under 6 inches,
yeah, you'll be set.
It's going to be a lot better.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've decided. And again, it has multiple ways of powering, which is why I feel like it's going to work for this. It can run 5 hours on Eco on that little satellite battery.
Wow.
And not to mention way longer on the main house batteries.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to get that. The prices just recently came down by 50% on them.
What?
So I'm going to get one.
No way. Yeah. Wait, so are they
now
like $600 now?
So there's the AC, and then there's a separate battery that it locks into.
Yeah.
So, and that separate battery it locks into is the same wattage as that.
Okay.
So if you get that with its own battery, it's kind of like having a fridge with its battery where there's redundancy. So if your power goes out, blah, blah, you've got that battery, right?
Yeah.
So if I have it plugged into my main system is either low or whatever, I can just run it on its own battery for a while.
How much is it with the battery?
So with the battery, it was like really expensive. Now you can get them for under $900 with everything, the battery, everything. And that
That's
used to
not
be
bad.
close to
Because
$2,000.
I've thought about getting the same thing.
And because it's a heater too, you get a lot of value for that.
Yeah.
You know, and
I just don't know where I would vent it. That's the
Yeah.
only thing.
and that's the thing. I know some people that are just going through the floor, some people that are using their window, because you already have those grates in your window. That might be something to consider.
That's true. I've thought about that.
Because a lot of people build like a center console in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
and the unit just goes there, and then the tubing goes behind the seat.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I love having my like
Yeah, me too.
passageway clear.
Me too.
That's like a big,
yeah.
that feels like a win every day
Yeah.
when I can get out of my driver's seat and walk into the back and I'm not tripping over something.
Yeah, I agree. So
Oh.
yeah, I don't know. Like being in the West Coast, in LA, in California, I feel like that's one thing that we just are really lucky is that the weather's not so extreme.
Yeah.
Because even when it's really hot, it's like, you know, you can get out of the van,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a lot of times. And that kind of forced me into the community a little bit more. Cause I noticed like after COVID, I became like a shut-in, like a hermit in a lot of ways. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. So like, I was like, van life for me was like, okay, let's get out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And and in a weird way, it like made me amongst my own community, people that would walk by and ask me questions, people
Yeah.
that would live in other areas. Cause I didn't want them to think I was like, a threat or an eyesore or, anything. So I really made it my business to talk to everybody in the area,
Yeah.
just get to know them, let them know what I was doing. And, you know, some of them were jerks, but
Really?
yeah, a couple were jerks, but 99, an overwhelming amount were really cool.
Yeah.
And I met people in my own neighborhood because it's LA. You don't talk to your neighbors.
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
But people are
The
curious
Midwest?
though.
But people get curious.
People
started
want to
meeting.
know about it.
I started meeting my neighbors, and
That's cool.
99% of them were great. They were
Yeah.
just great. And I ended up working with some of them.
Wow.
A gentleman that has an amazing AI company I became friends with, did some work with him.
Mm-hmm.
Just other people, and it just was really cool. And then I let them know because I have cameras all around my van.
Yeah.
That run wirelessly and they're plugged into the internet, so I can monitor them from anywhere. I let them know if I see something going on, you know, I'm gonna say something to
Yeah.
somebody. Somebody's breaking into somebody's car.
Have you seen that stuff on
Yeah,
the street?
there's, you know, it happens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen the broken glass.
yeah.
That's always so.
I had a guy
ugh.
vandalizing my van while I was inside of it,
No
and he didn't
way.
realize I was in my van.
What was he doing to it? Keying it or what was he doing?
Nah, it's the whole story. I don't know how much we can get into this, but
Oh no!
the Cliff Notes version of this
Did
was
you kick his ass?
no, no. But the Cliff Notes version is I heard this squeak
Yeah.
on the outside, and you hear when you live in a van,
You hear weird sounds.
and you notice everything.
Yep.
Like I hear somebody walking from 60 feet away.
Totally.
I hear, I'm like a bat now.
Dude, I know
I
exactly
have like
what you're talking about.
echolocation,
Yeah.
you know, right?
Yep.
Because like I'm always like paranoid. Like, am I going to get towed? Am I getting a ticket? Is somebody breaking
dude.
in? Is what's happening? Right? Every
Tell
time
me
a
about
car
it.
drives by, my whole van shakes. You
Yeah.
realize like,
Just the rock.
yeah,
Yep.
you realize air is like fluid. Like it's this whole thing. Anyway, so I'm hearing the squeak, and I'm like, bro, that's like a magnum marker on. I know I can identify it.
Dang.
And so this dude is like tagging my van.
What an
So
asshole.
so I have like I have some devices of self-protection, right?
As you should. As you should.
And like one that I started carrying all the time, I'll show for the camera. is-
Oh shit.
yeah, right? So like this is not going to do a lot of
Felt
damage,
that in my
but
spine.
but it could scare somebody.
Yeah.
And if a dog attacks you, it just gets them off you, whatever.
Totally.
So I have that. It's just like a little thing. And then I have another thing that is more of a blunt object, we'll just say, that is used to enforce trauma, a blunt trauma.
It's a gigantic rock.
No, yeah.
It's a stone.
And I may or may not have been trained to use this thing through years of
Wow.
martial art practice. But this rock, quote unquote. And so I jumped out the van,
Yeah.
and I've got the stun in one hand and the other
rock.
thing in the other hand. And I'm like ready to go to town. I'm
Yeah.
rage. I'm seeing red. And I see this dude And he's like, oh shit, like somebody's in the van. He backs up like 3 or 4 steps.
Yeah.
And then I'm just getting ready to lay into him.
Yeah.
And I'm cocked back. And this is all happening like in milliseconds, right? But in the moment, it stretches, right? When you're like going to fight somebody, it really like everything goes slow motion. It feels like.
Yeah.
So I'm just ready. And I'm about ready to just lay into this guy. For better, for worse, I'm about ready to destroy this guy.
Yeah.
And I notice in that split second, he's bracing to take it. He's like wincing and he's just like bracing to take it. He's not like coming at me. He's not,
Whoa.
he's just going to take it. And I realized in that split second that like, I'm going to do a lot of damage to this guy because he's not like defending it. He's just about to take a shot to the dome, to the knee, to wherever. I've got open game.
Yeah.
And I've got things in my hands. These aren't just my fists.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, in that split second, just something in me was like, bro, it's just not worth it. Like, it's not worth that. This guy's just going to take it. And I'm just like, and I just felt in that instant second, I've both fortunate and unfortunate enough grew up in like an environment to train about like fighting. So I've been in a couple things. I'm not like an MMA guy, but like I've been in a situation where you train your mindset. So I'm thinking I am rage filled because I haven't trained in a long time. And Sensei would be like, well, you're a white belt again because you don't train. You don't fight every month. So you're a beginner again, which is probably true. But in that split second, I was like, dude, it's not worth it. This guy's just tagging my van and I'm about to just get into a whole nother can of stuff. What if I accidentally kill this guy?
Totally.
And it could easily happen.
Totally.
And I've seen situations where people have put people in comas. They didn't know. They weren't trying to.
Dude, even a punch.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Just a punch can kill a man.
And I just I felt really lucky because in that split second, I just stopped. And I just stopped. And then his, machismo comes back and then we're jawing back and forth in this whole thing. And he's acting like he's going to be all tough again. But ultimately, we didn't fight.
Mm-hmm.
It turned into a 45-minute conversation with this guy.
Whoa.
And he started telling me, I've been really depressed lately. I don't know what's going on with my life. The only time I feel like I got anything that even gives me an ounce of joy or excitement is when I do this, when I'm tagging something, when I'm putting, it wasn't like a high level art he was doing, but it was important to him. And he was like, the only time I feel like anything that's not depressed is when I'm doing this. He's like, I'm sorry that I defaced your van. I'm sorry. Like, it was not cool. You're well within, your thing to come at me.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm sorry. And then I was just like, fuck, like, I'm so glad I didn't lay into this guy. Because now we're like, there's a chance,
Yeah.
Here's the other side of it. And this is the side you don't think of when you're seeing red and you're about ready to jump into this situation. Dude could have had a knife, a gun, whatever. Could have had his own version of a rock in his hand. I don't know. But I'm not thinking. I'm just jumping out ready to defend the honor of my sprinter, which is dumb. I have insurance. Like, this is dumb. But he didn't have those things. Lucky for me. But what he did have that I didn't notice was about 15 feet away in like kind of the bushes, not like hiding, but like it was night. This was late at night, by the way. So like out of the light is his brother standing back there that I didn't see initially. And his brother was like 6'5", probably 300 pounds, big dude. And he's just laying low in the cut, as the kids don't say anymore. Back there just waiting to see what's going to happen. If I go into this situation,
Big Brother's going to come in.
Tactically speaking, I'm not probably getting through that. Like maybe just the brother I got a chance, or maybe just this other guy, which was nowhere near as big as his big brother.
Yeah.
But both of them?
2v1.
Come on, man. Like, over what? So like, I felt like, and this happens to me in my life like a lot, and I think it does to everybody that quiets their mind enough to listen. You get that feeling, you get that vibe, you get that message that there's a better way to deal with this.
Totally.
And I feel lucky that I did that. But yeah, like, and so we ended up just talking. The brother just comes walking up and he's like, oh man, I know what's going to happen. He's like, I'm glad, blah, blah. He's like, sorry. And at the end, he was like, dude, again, I'm sorry about your van. Do you want me to
Yeah.
come back tomorrow and clean it? And I was like, and it wasn't a small mark. We're talking like a 4x4 foot space of tagging.
It was spray paint?
No, it was
Oh,
a
it was a marker.
Magnum permanent Sharpie.
Yeah.
Those big giant Magnum permanent Sharpies, right?
Yeah.
That's the new kids rarely use spray paint these days. They use markers now. They're faster. Not that I know, but that's what I've seen in the arts district. But you know, this dude is like just feeling out of place, and I was just like, you know what, I'll deal with it, dude. Like, don't even trip, because like that's the great thing about a used van.
Mm.
Like your van is gorgeous. If something like that were to happen
Thank
to
you.
your van and it was
Dude,
my
I
van,
would be
I'd lose my
so
shit.
pissed.
My van looks like an old work van because that's what it was, and that gives me kind of an urban camouflage that
Mhm.
it's got some little scrapes and bruises and stuff. So I'm not really super worried about the finish. I'm not
Yeah.
like waxing it, right? So honestly, like a shop rag and goof off, and it was gone.
Nice.
Totally, whatever, no big deal.
Yeah.
So and it took me 15 minutes, but it was just
Not
one of those
bad.
situations in this environment like that made me understand. Okay, you're in a different situation now.
Yeah.
So like you got to behave accordingly and not be all Mr. Testosterone.
Totally. Well, I think that there's like a bigger. I think that that's a really powerful story because in this country and in this city,
Yeah.
there's so many unknown variables, and it's so easy to go from like 0 to 100 real fast.
Yeah.
For you, but also for the other person.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
Over like what? Like traffic on the freeway.
Yeah.
People do it.
I was reading an article today about this kid in Salt Lake City who got shot, died. 15-year-old kid shot him. And this kid who died, he was like 23, and it was like an argument that happened between like two friend groups outside of like a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
I don't think that like the kid was like trying to murder him.
Yeah.
But like a 15-year-old kid killed somebody, and over what? Like over an argument?
Yeah.
I had a situation not too long ago where I was downtown and I was walking with a buddy of mine, and this car kind of like, I can't remember what the light situation was, but we were crossing, we had the right of way, and this car was coming, and it just kept coming.
Yeah.
And then I literally grabbed my friend and pulled him
Yeah.
out of the road because this car was about to hit him.
Yeah.
And I was pissed
Yeah. So
because
you're mad.
if I didn't pull my friend out of the road, like he would have been hit by this truck.
Yeah.
And so I think I like turned around and flipped him off
Yeah.
and, yelled something like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
Been there for sure.
But then that truck, when he makes the turn, pulls off to the side, and this dude starts mouthing off at me.
Yeah.
And it starts escalating. And I quickly realized, I was like, oh my God, like this is just, like that guy's an asshole, but like
And he was clearly in the wrong.
clearly in the wrong.
But at the end of the day,
But at the end of the day, I don't know what he's about to do.
Yeah.
I don't know what's about to happen. Like, it's so tough because you just, especially downtown LA, you don't know
yeah.
what might happen. So
In any big city, really.
yeah, any big city, like you just really got to think about like, what's the ultimate outcome
Yeah.
that you want?
Yeah.
Probably to be alive,
Yeah.
and for those around you to be alive.
Yeah.
Like it's,
And if you have to swallow a little pride in that, you
Yeah.
know, or a little feeling of macho-ness.
yeah,
But okay, I'm saying this all Mr. Level-headed now, and it still wasn't easy, but it's become way easier as I get older. And that's normal, I guess. It's probably just my body producing less testosterone. but like it's a lot harder of a proposition when you're young and you're charged up
totally.
and you're trying to find what your identity is.
Yeah.
And you feel like you won't be able to look at yourself in the mirror if you subconsciously you're feeling, if you feel like you're scared or a coward or whatever.
Yeah.
You go through all these things, but as you get older, you realize like once you like have your identity,
Mm-hmm.
you know who you are, you know what you're about. Stuff
Yeah.
like that's not important
Yeah.
at all. And that bringing it back to van life, that same type of realization is what allowed me mentally to do van life because I knew my identity. It wasn't wrapped up in having the status of a nice place in LA or the status of having certain titles or whatever, uh, certain working relationships with certain companies and certain brands. And that's big in LA. It's big everywhere, but it's super big in LA. And I was like, I don't need any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be happy, inspired, passionate about whatever I'm doing. And living in a van down by the river helped me perpetuate that more than staying in kind of handcuffed to a more traditional way of living out here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I could have made that leap had I not been mentally a little bit more free and like just kind of letting go of those kind of preconceptions of myself.
Yeah.
And it, obviously it helped COVID, the identity of people doing this
Mm-hmm.
really opened up that door to make it more socially acceptable. Because now when you're explaining it to people, you're explaining it because they're really interested. You're not explaining it because they're shocked.
Yeah, totally.
And that's different. I think 10 years ago, you'd be explaining it and people would be like, oh, what do you mean you live in your, there's always that guy that lives in this vehicle.
Tell me if you experience the same thing. When I tell people that I live in a van, I would say a good portion of the time, the response is like, oh my God, I would love to do that. Or like,
Yeah.
that's the dream.
Yeah. Yeah. Surprisingly amount.
And I don't want to like say that as if I'm like mocking it. Like that's just legit. Like,
Yeah.
like people have a positive reaction.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't think it was going to be like that.
Yeah.
I thought you'd get a whole bunch of, oh, are you okay? Like, like you're living in your car,
I do still get offers for sure from people who are like, if you ever need
Yeah.
a place like to
Yeah,
stay, if you
me
need a
too.
shower.
And it's nice.
Totally.
And I take advantage of it sometimes. Like I
Yeah.
take them up on their opportunities.
Yeah.
Not a lot because I'm a shut in still, but
Well, for me,
sometimes.
if it's the choice between like someone's couch and like my bed, I'll take
Yeah.
my bed any
Yeah.
day of the week because my bed is so
Yeah.
cozy. Like I love my spot. Like
Yeah.
I'm very, very content. Like,
And we're
even-
lucky. We're lucky because we have a fully built out solution though.
Definitely.
You know?
Definitely. Well, my very first van that I had when I was living in it with my little brother, like
oh, wow.
there were like if I was sick, there was no
Yeah.
I couldn't be in that van. I had to be at a friend's house or
Yeah.
an Airbnb, but at the time I didn't have money for an Airbnb. There was
Yeah.
a time when I got the flu.
Was that out here in LA?
Yeah, I was here in LA. That's
Yeah.
why we moved to LA. We came to LA together in the van.
Oh, wow.
But I got influenza A.
Ooh.
And that thing, man, that was probably worse than COVID for me. Like
Yeah.
I just disintegrated into my friend's couch.
Oh,
And
man.
bless her heart, she let me stay on her couch for a week. It was
Oh,
brutal. I couldn't have done it in the van.
that was a smaller van, probably, huh?
It was basically a minivan. It was just a bed
Yeah.
in a van.
Yeah.
You couldn't even like sit upright.
Yeah.
It was cozy, but as soon as the sun rose, like
Yeah. 2 boys.
you were cooking.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. We had these like curtains that kind of like slid across bungee cords
Yeah.
to block out the.
But like, how close are you still close with your brother?
Yeah, he's got a studio across from my studio.
So like, was that like a bonding thing for you guys?
Definitely.
Or was it always like that anyways? But was it?
We were always close.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, our lives were like totally synced up. Like,
Yeah.
I
cool.
got a job at Trader Joe's, and then I got him a job at Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
We went to 24-hour fitness together
Yeah.
every day.
Oh, that's cool.
We were like very much on a similar routine. Things maybe started changing when we started like dating
Yeah. Yeah.
people because then
And growing up, getting
yeah.
older.
But we're still very like intertwined
Yeah.
for sure.
So yeah, like I always like to ask questions like that because I really envy that because I'm an only child
Mm.
and most of my life it was not even just only child like it was only child with only parent because my mom and dad split up
Mm.
when I was really young and so it was like my mom had to work a lot so like a lot of like cooking and watching TV and hang out with my friends or whatever but it was like The
Yeah.
family structure was very minimal, and I spent a ton of alone time, which explains a lot now in my adulthood. And it also
Yeah.
is like my explanation to my mom when she's like, "You don't call me enough." And I'm like, "Mom, you raised a loner. Like you literally raised someone that is happy to just
Yeah.
chill and read and watch stuff. And I
Yeah.
just have fun. Like I never feel lonely being
Yeah.
alone. I just never feel lonely when I'm alone. You know, obviously everybody goes through those times where you're like, oh, nobody loves me. You know, it's Valentine's Day. Damn you, artificial constructs
Yeah.
of relationships. But I always like really was always like, oh man, it'd be so cool to like have a brother or sister and that type of connection with somebody. And so he's your younger, you said?
Yeah, younger
So
brother.
did you always feel like super like responsible for his
Yeah,
welfare?
definitely. Definitely. Um, I was actually kind of just thinking about that
Because you have the
either
very
today
paternal
or
vibe, by
yesterday.
the way. You have that very paternal.
Really?
You have that energy of like approachable, nice, but also like someone that has someone else's best interests at heart,
Mm.
which is rare.
Well, I
In
appreciate that.
thank you, but it's like it's rare in any city, but especially LA, where a lot of it is like, well, what can I do for you, and what can you do for me, though? What's
Right.
your social handle? What's your status? What's your network? That's a lot in LA,
Mm-hmm.
more so than anywhere I've ever seen. And you don't have that. Like when we talk about like networking and business contacts and stuff, it's all like for creativity and it's all for
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. It's never for like I'm going to use you for your contacts,
Right.
which is and it's easy to tell that difference once you've been out here for a while. So you have that energy. That's why I wanted to ask you
Oh.
because it's not super common, and I think that we should give people their flowers sometimes when they have that, you know, and be like, oh, you come across very genuine, you know, and sincere and like kind of almost protective in that sense. So that's
Mm.
why I figured.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, thank you. I'll take those flowers. I was thinking about that today or yesterday, but in the sense of like, I guess I feel like there's this sense of like it's almost like my job in terms of being the older brother. Like it's not even like a choice. It's like
Yeah.
I'm the older brother and that's my job. My
Yeah.
job is to like protect my younger brother.
Yeah. That's cool.
Not in like an overbearing way.
Yeah.
At least I
Yeah.
hope not.
Yeah.
But uh yeah, I don't know. There's something that just feels like the natural, like
Yeah.
that's what I'm here for
That's cool though.
in a way.
There's just
So,
something about that dynamic I think is just really interesting and it feels it at least from me on the outside of it like hypothesizing about what that feels like. You
mm,
know, because I feel similar ways in like relationships and I kind of adopt people, right?
mm,
As like my little brothers and sisters,
yeah.
um, or older brothers and sisters, but like there's just gotta be something that's really like I don't know, like it really probably gives you a sense of like worthwhileness, putting that energy and that love into it, right? Like,
Yeah.
because I know with some of my friends, if I go to bat for them on something, like I don't go to bat for them because of the feeling, but after the fact, it does feel good. And I'm like, oh,
Mm,
that's cool. Like, I'm so happy I got like an opportunity to do something. Because there's definitely been tons of times where people have gone out of their way for me, you know?
mhm,
And so that's got to be cool. I think that's the only thing. If I do ever have kids, I will try to have more than one.
yeah.
But you know, there's also,
Can always adopt too?
yeah, absolutely. And when I say have kids, I mean not just have biologically. I mean
Mhm,
adopt whatever.
yeah,
But because I'm super open to adoption. I think that's awesome.
yeah.
Um, but like there are also some really interesting benefits to growing up as an only child, though.
Mhm.
And not like the typical only child, because a typical only child is super spoiled. A lot of only
Yeah, I guess.
children, they have like two parents or they have like a stable household, and so all the attention's on them,
Right.
and they get really used to that, and you know that that's what that whole kind of thing has been built on that perception. But when you're in a situation where your parent is more like your sibling in a way, and you're alone just a lot, there's a certain freedom that comes from not being dependent on anyone
Mm-hmm.
that I do cherish. And I can walk anywhere, I can go anywhere, go to movies, go to restaurants, go to a bar, hike, just anything and be completely alone and just content
Hmm.
and just super happy about that and just
Yeah.
taking in the sights and the sounds and the energy and meeting new people out there. But like, there's just something about that that I don't know if I would have that had I had a more traditional family structure.
Yeah.
I think I would be lonely a lot more.
I can't do all of those things alone, for sure. I can go to a restaurant alone,
Yeah.
or like a food kind
Yeah.
of situation. I've never gone to a movie alone, and I
Yeah.
don't know that would be. I don't know.
Yeah. It's different. And the first
I've
couple
definitely gone to
times,
bars alone, but
yeah.
I also don't know that like that's good for me.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
that that's like a good
Old-
move.
Old Sheldon drinking in the corner again. But old Shelly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's for sure, for sure. And but a big, like I told you earlier, a big motivator for me to do this van life was I wanted to get out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask. So on the note about community connection,
Yeah.
do you know or are you connected with many other van lifers in LA besides me?
No, not a lot right now, and I haven't really kind of pursued that yet. I will.
Schoolie Palooza, man.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that. It sounds so fun.
It's insane.
So I think
It
I definitely
truly
want
is
to do
insane.
that. You know, I met we have a mutual friend, Christian, that we talked about.
Yeah. Shout out to Christian.
He was probably the first van lifer that I talked to in person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously like on groups and YouTube and stuff, I talk to people, ask a lot of questions and stuff. But like in person, like I think he was probably the first one out here,
Mm-hmm.
and he just saw me working on my van and stopped by
Sick.
with his German Shepherd and was like, "Yo, what's up?"
Yeah.
And just, you know, being the affable person that he is.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't really yet. I guess I've been so like wrapped up in just trying to build my unit into being like a fully functional thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I kind of do that. I've noticed my personality type does this a lot. I notice where I just will completely obsess over one aspect just over and over and over and over again. And then until I allow myself to move on to the next aspect, instead of what would be the more human, neurotypical way of being like, yeah, I'm building it and I might meet somebody here and there and we might hang out. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where it's more of a gradual
Yeah.
thing where I'm all like, no, go. Every little aspect of this van has to be fleshed out until it's the perfection of mobile freedom.
Yeah.
And then I will allow myself to have friends.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like I'm on, you know, my family couldn't afford growing up to have like super, you know, grow up in the mountains. It's just a different world. We didn't have like a lot of like normal healthcare that people have nowadays.
Mm.
It's a whole thing. But like, I'm pretty sure like I'm on the spectrum somewhere. And I don't say that jokingly. Like I really do feel that because
Yeah.
it has helped the way I create.
Mm.
So I'm pretty sure that I identify with a lot of aspects of autism. So I'm pretty sure there's something in there,
Mm.
and I know it's a gradient, and so it kind of explains to me a lot of like my behavior, that and the overlapping rampant ADHD that I feel like so many of us maybe have an undiagnosed, and maybe just modern society helps perpetuate that. I don't know. But I've noticed like a lot of like the way I operate, the way I do, I go like so hard on one aspect, you know, like making the van wasn't enough. I had to make it in the aesthetic that I wanted it in.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever I had to sacrifice to do that, I was willing to do it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that's super unhealthy. Sometimes though, it leads you to something unique and special. And I kind of do that with like my other creativity tasks. And I feel like it helps me, but on a human level, I'm also working at kind of mitigating that when it comes to like relationships and friendships and trying to be more balanced, and
Mhm.
communicative, where it's like this lifestyle for some people it makes you very isolated, but for me it's been the opposite. It's made me more connected
Yeah.
because you can't just, I mean, I guess you could, but you really can't just stay in your van for an extended period of time like your house.
Yeah.
Like your house, you can go for weeks and weeks, right?
Yeah.
You get delivery, you've got whatever, you've got food, whatever.
Yeah.
You can really stay in your room and in your house for a really unhealthy amount of time. And while you can, I've gone full days without leaving my van.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I have everything that I
Wow.
need to do that, but you can't go much longer than that
Yeah.
for something. And I feel so much better um psychologically just walking around the neighborhood. And that's one
Mhm.
of the reasons I chose this part of downtown, because it's super walkable
Yeah.
and
And parkable
and parkable for now.
for now.
That's a whole
We'll see what happens.
that's a whole nother thing. But I feel really like connected to the community more when I'm walking around.
Mhm.
And I'm just like an occasional, because I'm not one of those people that are typically in LA that don't make eye contact with people. Because
Mhm.
I don't know if you're like, have you been in New York a lot?
A little bit. A little
So
bit.
have you been out here primarily on the West Coast? I mean,
I guess so, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Primarily the West Coast for sure.
so I spent a lot of time back east. Not like I didn't live there for an extended amount of time, but I did like some work and some trips where I'd stay like months.
Mhm.
And like a lot of people out here and out there would ask me if I'm from there, because I talk more like I'm from there. Like,
Mm.
I do eye contact. I make maybe inappropriate jokes to people's faces as opposed to like whatever.
Yeah.
And
Is that a thing? Eye contact? Like in
yeah.
New York, it's more people are more.
So LA people don't look at you in the eye.
It's true.
99%. If you don't
It's-
know that person
Yeah.
and you walk by each other on the street, you like might do the quick glance to see if they're carrying or something,
Yeah.
but you're not looking at them.
Yeah.
In New York, you're not like staring at people.
Yeah.
It's subtle,
You're
it's
acknowledging them.
but almost everybody is looking at eye level in New York, where in LA, a lot of people are looking down.
Looking down, or they're looking on their phone.
And their phone. And the phone is in New York too, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But in New York, like I feel like people talk to each other a lot more in New York. And I've always likened it to where New York and LA are like polar opposites. And I'm not saying this to hate on LA, because there's so many aspects, because it's easy to hate on LA. It's so in vogue to do it right now. But there's a lot of there's a lot of aspects to
I didn't realize it was in vogue.
yeah, it's very popular to hate on LA right now.
Man,
'Cause
that
I-
means
I-
my natural emotions are finally in
Yeah.
sync with the mainstream.
I see it, I hear it. I'm chronically online, so I really
Oh,
feel
man.
like I got a good finger on the pulse.
Yeah.
But there's tons of stuff in LA that I love, like that I absolutely love. So don't take this that I'm joining
Yeah.
that crowd, because I'm definitely not. There are bad and great things of every freaking area
Yeah.
in every coast. So, but the thing I noticed about in general, and this is obviously a little bit of a generalization, but in New York, people are assholes and hard and bitter and shitty on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get through that shell, and it's usually really easy to get through that shell,
Yeah.
almost everybody in New York are a bunch of softies.
Mm.
Just mushy, caring, loving softies.
Yeah.
But they got that hard exterior, that harsh exterior that you got to get through, because they don't fuck around.
Yeah.
So they're going to bust your balls to your face. But if you're not like trying to hurt them, or you're helping them, or whatever, you're a legit person, they'll go to bat for you like no other.
Yeah.
People in New York are like that.
LA's the opposite.
LA is the opposite. LA, everyone's nice to you.
Yeah.
Like 90% of people, if you're not doing something stupid, 90% of people are like, oh my God, like, oh yeah, that's so cute, like blah, blah, like
Yeah.
they're super nice to you. And then on the inside, they don't give a fuck. They're bitter on the inside, they're jealous, or they're negative on the inside for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
And it's hard to reconcile that sometimes. So like a
A
lot
lot
of
of broken dreams in LA.
there is. And
Jaded people who haven't made.
yeah, I
Like-
mean, that's in New York too, but
Well,
it's
here-
a different dynamic.
here's a big difference I feel about New York. I think that it really has to do with the industry. Like, so many people move to Los Angeles because they're pursuing acting
Yeah.
or music.
Yeah.
Those are the big ones. I mean, there's also dance and there's fashion, those things. But New York also has those things, but in addition, you could be an entrepreneur, you could be in finance. I mean, finance, like Wall Street.
Yeah, more
Like,
predominantly, absolutely.
like I just feel like there's different types of avenues that are actually more traditional.
Yeah.
So it's like if you wanted to get into the world of finance or the world of banking, there actually is like a pretty clear like roadmap
Right.
for how you can do that. Now, what I am beginning to learn is that if you want to get into entertainment, and you're not like super picky and you can go with the flow, there actually is more of a roadmap than you might have guessed in LA.
Ton more.
And that's what I'm like just starting to learn.
Ton more, yeah.
But that being said, I do think that my guess would be you're not going to meet a ton of people in New York who are like, oh, I came here to be a banker and I just never had my break. Like.
That's true. I never thought of it that way.
So, whereas you'll meet a ton of people in LA who, they're a server or they're working for a catering company and they're like, I hate all these people.
Yeah.
And I hate this and that. And,
Yeah. And I think a lot of it, though, like in the differences of the mentalities, I think a lot of it stems from geography and car culture because, like, in New York, everything's concentrated.
Yeah.
There's mass transit. Everything's right next to each other.
Yeah.
And so you're forced to be around people.
I love it.
All the time. And I love that.
I love New York.
In LA, everyone's got their own car.
Mhm.
You're alone a lot of the times. You're on these freeways that are packed, but everybody's alone. Like everybody's isolated. Everything's so spread out in LA. It's like LA is sprawling.
Well, and if you make a friend, and let's just say like you live in the West Side. Let's say you live in Santa Monica and you meet this really cool person and then you find out they live in Silver Lake.
No, they're
It's
dead.
like, well,
they're dead.
I'm never seeing this
Sorry,
person again.
You just died.
But now, I've never lived in New York.
Yeah.
But, it sounds like you have more experience in New York than me. So I can imagine if you meet somebody and they're like, yeah, I live on the Lower East Side and you live in Williamsburg. Maybe you guys will actually still meet up.
Yeah, you just jump on a train.
Now that being said, Lower East Side and Williamsburg are across the bridge, so it's like that's not that crazy.
And I don't know like all the specific logistics, but it's like you spend a couple bucks, you jump on the train. Sure, you got to smell piss, and there might be a dude like jacking it, in the corner, but it's like free. It's like really low cost.
Yeah,
and it's fast.
Yeah,
and everybody does it, so it's like. There's a certain level of kind of like embraced togetherness. It's like, you just got on the subway. No big deal. Like when I was out there, I was riding the subway all the time.
Yeah.
And when we just opened our stations here, they don't go a lot of places yet, but I was so hyped.
Well, did you see their new ad? They're increasing the frequency of trains now.
Yeah.
So I think that they're ramping up for the Olympics. I think they're getting getting ready for the Olympics, which
they need to.
I'm so here for it because
me too.
Mass transit, like the transit in LA, has so much room for improvement, but it's actually making steps.
At least it's finally starting.
And the trains, like having these new regional connectors. Is that what they call it? The regional connectors?
I think so. Like I'm not sure. Like there's still some disconnectedness to it. This is maybe the biggest flaw still, but like Metro is the one that I use the most, and that's the one that all these stations are that are connected that go from Azusa, Pasadena to Long
Santa
Beach,
Monica,
Santa Monica,
the airport,
Culver, the airports, and all that stuff. And
just good luck if you want to get to West Hollywood.
Oh yeah. But like, so I ride a one wheel, and it's been like the
so cool
best thing for like limited traveling because if I take the train and just drop off at a spot. This thing can get me 5-10 miles quick. Somewhere. And I still have tons of charge left.
Maybe I should get a one wheel.
And it doesn't take up a lot of space in my van.
That's exactly why I'm thinking
I had an e-bike. I had a whole bunch of different mobility vehicles. I had electric skateboards and I had a whole bunch of stuff. But the one wheel was the one thing that, number one, it was hands-free. So I could carry cameras because that's really what I started using it for. But like, I could just take it on the train really easily. And then I can go away from where the stop is in a pretty wide diameter, but it's also like that for the van. So if I find a good parking spot, I don't want to leave it every
Yeah.
time I need to go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
If the grocery store's 3 miles away,
Yep.
do I want to walk 3 miles? But on the one wheel, it's quick.
Super quick.
Easy 3 miles.
Yeah. See, right now I'm on my skateboard.
Yeah.
So I'll actually I'll park here
Yeah.
and then I'll skate to my studio.
So you're brave,
I
though.
do that all the time.
You're brave. You skate on these LA streets. Oh my God. With the amount of damage to our streets, how are you not almost dying
I mean, I've
every day?
definitely eaten shit many times.
I admire that.
Luckily, nothing too crazy. I haven't had any. I remember one time, oh my goodness. This was in Vancouver. I same skateboard, and Vancouver gets so much rain. And there was a night I came home, got off the bus, and it was raining, I think, or it was wet. It's dark out. And I remember I wiped out so hard, just boom, smacked the cement. And I think I was wearing headphones too. It was just a whole mess. Everything went everywhere. I haven't had one of those in a while. Knock on wood. Hopefully don't have it for ever again.
Yeah.
That being said, I've been thinking about an e-bike specifically for that reason of I want to be able to park the van and know I can get anywhere. But maybe the one wheel. How fast is the one wheel?
So it depends on how brave you are.
Okay.
They just released a new model that goes faster, but it's also really expensive. It's like $3,200.
Shit.
Is
that the off-roading one too?
Yeah, I mean technically they all kind of are, but
That's
it's
so
just
crazy.
got higher torque. It doesn't have as much range.
Okay.
It's the GTS. This is the GT, the previous top.
What's the range?
So this one, and it depends on weight. So you're
okay.
Pretty svelte guy, so you'll get good range out of it. I've eaten a couple cheeseburgers this year, so I get a little bit less. But you can get a good maybe 16 to 20 miles on this.
That's not bad.
Pretty easily. The newer one a little bit less, but it torques way more speed, more aggressive, more hills, off-road, whatever. But generally, they're very similar.
Yeah.
Anybody that tells you they're drastically different, they're not.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like an electric unicycle if you've ever ridden one of those. That is for mobility, the electric unicycle, or what we call EUCs or ukes. Shout out to the ukes clans.
Do you ride those? Can you ride one?
I can ride one, but I'm not great at it. And I didn't have as much fun on it. But I will tell you, for mobility, there's nothing invented that is even close. You can go up to 60 miles an hour.
60 miles an hour on a unicycle?
Some go 80 miles on a charge.
Oh, 80 miles in...
An 80-mile distance.
Okay, 80
on
mile
a charge
distance.
Up to 60 miles an hour speed.
That's nuts.
Those are the super high-end ones. In general, you're probably closer in the 40s.
That's insane.
But really fast, really far, but it's a different vibe. I never was.
So you're not pedaling.
No.
You're sitting on it.
So if you've never seen an electric unicycle, it's basically there's different wheel diameters, but we'll generalize here. There's a 18 to 20 inch diameter wheel, and it looks kind of like a small motorcycle tire.
I think I know what you're talking. And then you're sitting,
and you're on top of it, and the frame's built around it, and there's two pedals.
Yes.
That you
okay, I
stand
have
on,
seen those.
and you stand.
I didn't realize those were called electric
Those are
unicycles.
called. Were you thinking the clown pedal guys?
Yes.
It's not that.
I was thinking that's the most insane thing I've ever heard of. In my
And
life.
literally, that industry is driving. It's driving innovation in personal electric vehicles because they iterate and they are taking more chances than any other electric vehicle, more than bikes, more than skateboards, more than one wheels. They're trying things that nobody's ever tried on a level. They're doing full suspension. They're doing things that are they're doing a lot. Now you can totally die on those way easier because you're going a lot faster. But
I would not go 60 miles an hour on that. That's crazy.
Yeah, but I could ride one of those from here to Santa Monica, no problem, and back. But to me,
on the bike trail,
bike trails, regular surface streets, not the freeway.
You could bomb that.
Although there are videos of dudes on freeways doing 60 on those things, doing 55 on electric unicycles,
That's
just
nuts.
taking their own lives in their hands.
Nuts.
But to me, like I don't know. I think this is just a limitation of my hand-eye coordination
yeah.
and my balance. I think because you're like a true skater, so this would probably come a lot easier to you. I just never felt fully comfortable on them, and it always takes me longer to learn things like that. Like it even took me way longer to get really comfortable on the one wheel than most people can start getting it in a few days. I was like 3 weeks in, I was like still like baby Bambi deer, shaky legs, but then once I got used to it, like it clicked, something just clicked.
Yeah.
And then I got pretty good at it. But,
so sick.
But electric unicycles, I just never felt really comfortable on them because you're just facing forward.
Yeah. It's kind of like skiing versus snowboarding.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And I just never felt fully trusting, and I had a really good version of one.
Well, did you lean forward to go? Is that
dramatically when you're going fast?
Yeah,
your angle is like 45 degrees. Like
whoa,
you're super leaned in, and I just didn't have as much fun. But if I needed something, because I kind of like the floaty, slow feel vibe of a one wheel.
Yeah,
but there's nothing that compares to the speed, the mobility, and the range of an electric unicycle. And there's an entire passionate and amazing community built around those. A lot of them are in New York, but a lot of them are out here too. There's like groups out here that do like electric vehicle rides, and
I've seen some of those groups at Bike Shed.
They'll roll like 100 deep, 200 deep.
Yeah.
And I love that. They usually out here embrace all vehicles, like one wheels and electric unicycles together. In a lot of areas, especially in New York, they don't really cross-pollinate a lot because these are so much slower. It's like only Ukes. Only Ukes ride with Ukes because they're going so fast. And there's this guy, Tishan Fowey. Shout out to Tishan. He freaking was one of the first filmmakers to use those electric unicycles in a more advanced thing, and it just got me hooked on electric vehicles. Him and Casey Neistat, obviously, riding boosted electric skateboards in New York.
Yeah.
But like that's something that you may want to at least try.
Yeah.
And you can just find one. A lot of these places that sell them, they'll let you either rent one or just try it.
Oh, I would love to do a trial run.
But that's something like you'd be able to get the most places the fastest on those and go in the most crazy terrains.
Yeah.
Because like those things can go upstairs. Because they have so much more torque.
Dang.
And they operate on the same concept as the one wheel where there's a gyroscopic motor inside that keeps you balanced. Provided there's enough power there, but it's just a different thing. Yeah. And I didn't really need that much speed and range, so the one wheel has been for me. And I've bought and sold a one wheel like 5 times.
Really? How much are these ones?
So this version's like around $2,000.
Man, so wild. I've bought in cars for less than that.
Yeah. No, it's stupid expensive, and it's the same. Like I've had a few electric bikes, like Super 73s.
Yeah,
and
the Super 73 is cool. I interviewed a guy who rode one from New York to LA.
Yeah. Oh, they're great. I had Onyx, the RCR, which is a much faster version of an electric bike. Aerial riders, I've had some of those. So I've tried to like dabble in all of them, but like there's pluses and minuses, I think, for everyone. So like for you, and this is something I've been thinking of, was like for an e-bike, like where do you put it?
Right.
Because it's like, so there's the rack solution.
I was thinking front rack.
Yeah.
Not back rack. Because I don't like the idea of not being able to open my doors.
Yeah.
Immediately.
What about a swing away back rack?
Swing away, parking in the city. I am a pretty decent parallel parker.
Yeah.
With that van.
Yeah.
I've pulled off some miracles.
Yeah, same.
And I just don't want to add anything to the back. I feel like the front, you can see it. It's right, it's right there.
Yeah. That's true.
Or
I didn't think
roof.
about that.
I've thought about the roof.
Yeah.
I've also wondered about folding.
But then your solar, you're taking away solar.
I got the roof deck.
Oh, yeah, you don't even have solar up there, huh? Or you just have partial.
So I have 3 panels in the front, and then the back part's a roof deck.
Yeah. So like for you, if I were you, and I did want to add more solar, the first thing I would do before I did
on the sides would be
before I did a side would be a walkable top.
I could do that.
So that you don't lose the roof deck. You could still walk on it, but you probably will double your capacity. But you're gonna pay because
Yeah.
they're like triple the price
Yeah, they're expensive.
of like a Renogy monocrystalline. They're like triple the price. But
you know what though? In all
do you
reality,
use your roof deck, by the way? Ever?
I actually do. I do. It's like it
'Cause I
comes
wanted
in.
one so bad.
It comes in handy, but for weird things. Like I'll hang out with a friend up there and like eat pizza or like have a
See?
drink or what I really
I love
want.
that. I love the sound of that so much.
I want an opportunity to jump off of it into like a large body of water.
Oh yeah.
That's what I really want. I have a cool photo of like a bunch of my friends, probably too many people, on my roof deck
Yeah.
in Joshua Tree. Went on like a climbing trip. And, like, it's a bunch of them out there. But what I was gonna say is,
That's the dream.
I really want to do a step van, or not a step van, a box truck. I really want to do a box truck or
Same.
a school bus.
Same.
And the thing is, you just have so much roof available.
Yeah.
That what I would probably do actually,
And it's square
I
on
might
the inside.
have. You know what I might do? I might do complete solar deck.
Yeah.
But have like almost like a manhole porthole thing
Yeah.
that I could like climb up and like look out. But I want to do a box truck that has a lift gate,
Yeah.
and that lift gate then becomes your porch.
Yeah.
It becomes your hangout spot.
Yeah. I saw somebody do that.
Not to mention the fact too that if you actually need to like load things, it
Yeah.
actually can be pretty sick. And then what people do that
That'd be
I've
so
seen
nice.
is they add these like ladders. They do a door on the side and they have these like foldable ladders.
Mm.
Not ladders, stairs.
Oh, okay.
Foldable stairs. They're really cool. And they use that as their entrance. But in my mind, a box truck
Yeah.
is just the perfect size. It's basically like a freaking New York apartment.
Yeah.
You could have a massive water tank. You could have all the solar you need.
So much easier to build in because you have right angles.
Right, yep. It's a big box.
Nothing is straight in a Sprinter van.
But here's the thing. I think, because I'm definitely like a new vehicle guy.
Yeah.
Only because I've been a used vehicle guy
Yeah.
for so long.
I want to be from now on.
Well, I'm so glad that I got the new
Yeah.
like Mercedes
Yeah.
Sprinter van because I didn't want to deal with any car problems
Yeah.
at all. So I want to get a brand new box truck, like a brand new Isuzu box truck, which
Yeah.
is
Isuzu,
probably going to be like
Mitsubishi makes a good one.
60 to
Or
80K.
that's the same make.
But here's the thing too. Well, okay, I think it's maybe different with the box trucks. With a Sprinter van, if you buy a new one,
Yeah.
it's a good investment because it's going to go up. The value of it's going to go up. I don't know that that's the same with a box truck because people want Sprinter vans.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily want school buses, box trucks, these other things.
You have to find somebody that's looking for that. Where I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of use cases for a van.
Or you just have to be committed. You have to be
Yeah.
like, this is my thing for the next like
Yeah.
20 years, which I've also thought about this too. If you have a van that breaks down on you
Yeah.
and you're like, I just don't want to pay to fix this thing.
Yeah.
If the van still functions internally
Yeah.
as your home unit, I mean, there's no reason why you can't just buy a little piece of land and put it
Yeah.
on there and be like, okay, this is my.
Yeah. That YouTuber just did that. That big one, Linnea, I think her name is. She just did that.
That sounds familiar.
She just bought. She's one of the creators that I watched to do the build out, and she just bought land.
I'll have to check
Just
her
getting it set up with like water and
That's cool.
stuff like and power. But
That's tight.
yeah, that's the thing I almost bought a U-Haul, a
Mhm.
decommissioned U-Haul box truck, like a
I thought about
17
that.
footer.
Thought about that so many times.
I almost did it because they were only $4,000, $4 or $5,000. They're super cheap.
So cheap.
They have full service records.
Yeah.
They're not gonna last a super long time because they get beat to crap.
Yeah.
But they'll last.
But they're
you,
also meant to be beat to
yeah.
crap.
But they'll last you maybe 100,000 miles, maybe.
Yeah.
Which is for a $5,000 investment. I think that's decent.
Yeah.
And I almost did it, but the thing is, there's this YouTuber. I'm chronically online, so there's this YouTuber. I think her name's Sarah something.
Mhm.
She went from van life to box truck life, and her build is dope so far.
Mhm.
But like, there are things you lose though, because like
Mhm.
living in a city, parking is
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
for a box truck.
Though you could do box truck in LA. Because
Yeah.
there's enough. So across the bridge,
Yeah, as long as you're not in like downtown.
I don't know what this area is called. Okay, so you know if
Which
you
bridge?
okay. If you continue to go down Alameda
Mm-hmm.
and then you go past the historic state park.
Yeah.
There's a bridge.
Yeah.
Takes you over the LA River.
Yeah.
To the left, I want to say it's called like, is it San Fernando Road or something like that?
Yeah.
There's a building where they do a lot of shooting,
Yeah.
a lot of shoots, a lot of film production.
I think it's like Lincoln Heights, kind of
that
that-ish.
area. There's
Frogtown.
a lot of. It's not quite Frogtown.
It's like before that, right?
It's before Frogtown. It's also like right against the LA River.
Yeah.
There's a Home Depot there and a
Yeah.
Harbor Freight. There's a ton of RVs.
Yeah. Kind of
and stuff.
sketchy though. Because of those
Definitely.
RVs.
Dude, definitely kind of sketchy, but there's room over there.
Yeah.
And there's unmetered, unmarked spots. Like there's places where you could post up for a minute. There's also in like the Marina Del Rey area.
Yeah.
There's some spots that I see a lot of big RVs and like here's the thing about having a bigger rig.
Yeah.
There are places you can put it in LA. It just becomes sketchier.
Yeah.
But I'm also you know, talking about some
what's
of the
your
social
opinion on that?
Well, talking about some of the social issues here in Los Angeles. I have a very limited, I guess, like amount of data on the types of people who inhabit these dwellings.
Yeah.
Really, my information is limited to like one interaction that I had with a guy who came up to me who lived in one of those. He walked up to me because he saw my van, and he saw the solar panels, and he was asking me about solar because he was thinking about putting solar on his.
You mean like other RVs and vans and trailers and stuff like that? Or are you talking about more
He had
like
a big
encampments?
RV. Well, yeah. I mean, it was, you know, like when you see those RVs that are beat up and busted out, and it's like kind of a whole scene.
Old Winnebago.
Yeah. So this
Rusty
guy was
Brown.
This guy was living in one of those.
Right.
He came up to talk to me, and he was a really nice guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And I asked him, I was like, "Hey, man, like out of curiosity, like what do you do?" And he told me that he did scrap metal and he was an umpire, and so. You know, basically like subsistence living.
Yeah.
Definitely an odd dude. But in that interaction, I was like, okay, like, you know, definitely doesn't seem like this guy is like living the dream, but
yeah,
he's just not like he wasn't like a scary person. So I have been
I think
curious.
that's common, by the way.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
That it's like not scary.
Yeah, I want to actually open myself up to having more of those conversations and more experiences, because in Los Angeles, wherever you drive, you're going to see that. And I think a lot of people, myself included, kind of immediately jump to conclusions about like, that looks super sketch.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it does look sketch. Like like when you see a beat up
and there is that. Don't get it twisted. There is that. There is someone that will stab you if they feel like it, or maybe is not all there and doesn't realize they're stabbing you. That happens. Let's not gloss over the reality. But I think there is an element of humanity that we become jaded to, that there are a lot of just regular people for one reason or another, maybe because we all have psychological issues of one sort or another, right? Like I was telling you, I'm pretty sure I'm on the spectrum. I've weaponized it for my creativity, so it works for me. But I could tell if I had something else going on that made me like chronically depressed and I couldn't function, like my road would look really different, you know?
Yeah.
Wouldn't make me any less of a person, but it would make my road different.
Yeah.
So I think that you see that a lot with people where they find themselves in a situation and they didn't have a lot of options. And I think that was part of the adjustment to living in my van was kind of realizing like, yo, like it's really easy in LA to go from everything's fine, you live in a house, to like living in a vehicle on the street. And even though I was really lucky that I was able to put enough away to get what I got, like super lucky. I feel very fortunate. I did also work my ass off, but I really feel like that was luck. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I'm not cashing trust fund checks or nothing like that, right? but like I'm lucky. I'm
Yeah.
really lucky because a lot of people don't have what I have.
Mhm.
That being said, there was still the energy of like, yo, I live on the street. Like I live in a van.
Yeah.
There's a difference, but I also kind of don't have that structure anymore.
Mhm.
And it just made me realize how quickly your situation can change. So for people
Yeah.
that weren't as lucky and maybe they got laid off, maybe
Yeah.
their wife left them, maybe whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
There's still people.
LA is a tough city. It's an
Yeah.
expensive city. Life happens. I mean,
Yeah.
we live in a country where
we don't give a shit about
wanna
people.
dude, I wanna say it's like
We don't live. Wait. Let me just stop. I don't feel we live in a country anymore. We live in a business. America is a business. It used to, I think, be a country, but now I really feel like it's just a business. And if you're not contributing to
or
it,
a battleground of of businesses
yeah, it is.
that are trying
It
to
is, man.
suck you dry.
It's tough. No,
Um,
but you're right. You're right.
I read a statistic once about the percentage of bankruptcies that happen because of like medical debt.
It's
And I
insane.
want to say it was something like 75%.
It's insane.
So yeah, like when it comes to people's backstories, you know,
Yeah.
you have no idea what happened, and there definitely is a difference. Like it's a spectrum,
Yeah.
in terms of people's living situations.
Yeah.
Like even in terms of like the unhoused population,
Yeah.
in Los Angeles, people who are living in Skid Row,
Yeah.
there's a difference between that vibe and what's going on in Venice.
Absolutely.
Like in Venice, you might meet some people who are like some real hippies.
Yeah.
You know, real hippies.
Yeah. Absolutely.
In Skid Row, you might come across quite a few people who are severely mentally ill,
Yeah.
to the point of like not being able to take care of themselves at whatsoever.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or dealing with some like really insane
Yeah.
drug
Yeah.
dependencies
And everything in between.
and everything in between. So
Yeah.
it's definitely in Los Angeles, you get it all. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. You
Yeah.
get the highest highs and the lowest lows. And that was actually something that when I moved here was really disturbing to me. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I think I didn't really know what to expect
Yeah.
of Los Angeles. And when I moved here, all I could think is like, how are the streets not paved with gold? Like some of the wealthiest people in the world live here.
Yeah.
And yet I am like driving under overpasses that
Yeah.
are just tent cities, and it looks like, you know,
Yeah. Not a lot of sharing
this
between those two groups.
Dickensian Oliver Twist
Yeah.
world, or
Yeah.
like, you know, what is going on?
Yeah. There's not a lot of sharing, but
So
you know, it's hard to solve poverty on a van life podcast, but you know, there's a
but
lot.
we're trying.
There's a lot, and I'm firmly entrenched that the solution is TikTok.
Oh my God.
And I'm only half joking about that.
Technology is the way through.
But TikTok especially,
Okay.
I'm telling you right now, man, because I work with a lot of young people, right?
Yeah.
I film a lot of young people, and I don't have the ego that a lot of people more in my generation have when it comes to like, oh, these kids, they don't know this. I'm really open-minded, and I love creative minds. And so most of the creative minds tend to be younger people because life hasn't beaten it out of them yet. And TikTok is a bastion of creativity, communication, and movement. And everybody's algorithm's different. And I think if you have a really bad algorithm on TikTok, I feel like it says more about you than the world.
Oh, totally.
Because the TikTok algorithm is so advanced, it is a little scary that
It's going to show you what you want to see.
Yeah, and what you engage in, and what was that old saying, like feed the right wolf? like you know, the two wolves fighting in you. That's like TikTok is super good at that. And so like I totally am like a defendant of that technology, because I've met people that are so talented and doing something really, really like meaningful. I've seen grassroots movements. I've seen people do editing, video editing on there that were more advanced than the editing bays on the Warner Brothers lot when I worked there.
Wow.
And I've seen that from like a 16-year-old kid. But because he doesn't have the pressure of a union, a wife and kids, of a boss over him, afraid to try new things, he doesn't
He can
have
do
that.
whatever he wants.
He's just like balls to the wall. He just tries something that hasn't been done before. And because TikTok is so rapid, like you communicate ideas from one person to another so rapidly, more rapidly than any other platform in existence, it allows things to propagate in a way that we've never seen.
Yeah.
Which I think is both a plus and minus for it, because it's not all rainbows, obviously.
Yeah.
But like I've seen people, you know, like put pressure on a business through TikTok because they did something messed up, and they be held accountable financially because of TikTok more rapidly than I've ever seen anything in my life.
Yeah.
Not YouTube, not Instagram, definitely not Facebook. And I'm just like, yo, that's real power right there. But it's not power. This is where the governments, I think, mess up when they try to say how evil TikTok is. This is not giving power to TikTok. That is an insult to the intelligence of the users of TikTok. They're not. If you say that TikTok has the power to influence all these young minds, I think that that's a gross overstatement. TikTok is what it is because of the minds of its young users. And all it's doing is facilitating the handshake, no matter what the algorithm is saying. If you feel a certain way, sure, you could be swayed one way or another on a subject if you're open-minded about certain things. I get you. But somebody's not going to take something that you feel is inherently bad and make you feel it's inherently good because of an influencer or, you know, whatever. Now, if you get more knowledge about something that you didn't have before and it's true, you're allowed to change your mind. And then that's the kind of influence I think that we need to see more of. But TikTok, man, like it is the beginning to me of what a global conversation looks like among masses of people. It, to me, like we first got it when the internet first started, you know, in the early aughts, and when YouTube first launched on the scene and Vine and stuff, we started getting stuff.
Yeah.
But TikTok is a different animal, and I feel like it's going to end up being very profound. Whether it's called TikTok or not, it doesn't really matter. What matters is the function that it's doing, and we're not going to give that up as a humanity, as a species anymore. So if TikTok goes away, it gets banned, whatever, you blame whatever, you blame it on China, whatever, there will be something that will fill that void, and it's not going to be Instagram. And so it's
going to be YouTube Shorts.
I know, right? God, they can't get out of their way with shorts, so that function is like super important. And I feel like it's just made like a really, really profound effect. And it's made the world smaller so that if you talk to somebody in a different place, you really can see how alike you are in so many ways, and different in important ways, but also like super alike. Like, oh, you want like the exact same thing to me. Like, obviously I know that, but seeing it is different. So yeah, I'm a huge defender of it, and of young people in general. I just feel like the youth right now, I say that as some grizzled old man, but I feel like the youth right now has the ability to rise up and deal with the challenge more than any other generation, because you know, we have the whole greatest generation and the World War II, and I get it, you know, and there was a profound contribution that all of these generations made, and we wouldn't be here today had they not done what they did and sacrificed how they did. That being said, the evolution of minds has happened in a way that kids right now deal with more information on a daily basis than any human being has ever been exposed to.
That's definitely true.
In the history of this planet. Now, older people, fittingly, older people will tell you how terrible that is and how unhealthy that is. And and they need to unplug and go outside. And I get
Mhm.
it. Like exercise is important. I told you myself, like I feel connected when I go outside and just walk around.
Mhm.
But what we need to understand is that this next generation and the ones after it, they're not going to be like the previous generations. And it doesn't make it worse. It just makes it different. And
Yeah.
they're going to excel in ways of thinking that every other generation could not touch
Yeah.
with a 10-foot pole. And we're going to need that because the world's problems in the future, since we're solving the world's problems here tonight, they're not gonna be solved by the way we solved old problems.
Mhm.
They're gonna require four-dimensional thinking, multifaceted approaches,
Yeah.
just super more advanced and open to new ideas. And to me, like that drives me in almost every way I do for work, for van, for everything. Is just the ability of younger people to look at things differently from a new perspective, like we
Mhm.
talked about earlier.
You know what it's gonna be?
Hmm.
It's gonna be solar punk.
God, that's the dream. Solar punk is
Solar punk.
is the positive outcome, and cyberpunk is the dystopia. Don't get me wrong. I am like I romanticize and am just hopelessly addicted to the idea and concept of cyberpunk.
Yeah.
And I feel like elements of cyberpunk are inevitable. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
We're going to integrate with machines. We're going to integrate with AI. We're going to integrate with those types of things. That's going to happen. But the best side of that is solar punk that's in congruency with nature, that's in
Yeah.
congruency with these positive aspects of living. There's this architect, Dami Lee on YouTube, if you've ever heard of her, and she does these deep dives on architecture and futures, both cyberpunk, dystopian, and solar punk. And she just really goes into the difference of the mindset. It's really, really interesting.
I'll have to check her out.
Yeah, Dami Lee, she's great.
What I love about that concept of solar punk is like punk is always like a reactionary kind of vibe.
Yeah.
It's like you're rebelling against something.
Yeah.
But I think that the phrase solar punk and what it makes me think of is like rebelling against a what is it called? Like carbon based,
Yeah. The establishment.
like the establishment, oil,
Yeah.
burning
Pollutants.
coal, pollutants.
Yep.
And so like in a way, the rejection of that is the embracing of a more balanced, a more integrated. Because if punk is really just like the pushing away, it doesn't it doesn't necessarily have to manifest in like skinny jeans and spikes, which I'm all about.
Yeah.
But in this case, in the future case, it's like, it's pretty punk rock to go solar.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, I don't know, like, how much longer we're gonna go, but like, there's something that was really interesting to me. Have you ever seen the videos where people take AI, whether it's a chatbot, a large language model like Chat GPT or something similar, and then they combine it with like Midjourney and some of the image generators, right? And but when they combine it, what they're able to do is like kind of hypothesize and extrapolate certain things. So there was an interesting thought experiment that was done, and they were talking to AI about what would the future look like without colonizers. So without anybody going into Africa and just taking all the resources and slaves, and without anybody coming to America and just enslaving the Native American population and all that stuff, and then extrapolate that to the future. And they all looked like these indigenous solar punk cities.
Whoa.
And they were just hyper advanced, but they were all like incongruent with nature.
Wow.
And I just feel like if we can survive this time frame right now, and I feel like that's a question. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm somewhat optimistic because of young people, but I also understand how hard it's going to be in the next 10, 20 years, 30 years. If we do survive this time period of humanity, I really do feel that we have a chance at making that happen, like this indigenous kind of where we celebrate the indigenous peoples are all around the world in every country, that we celebrate that, and then we kind of see it in its technological heightened form. Because technology in itself is not inherently bad. It's what we do with it. It's how we use it. It's what its justification is.
Yeah.
We use tech to, a solar panel tech helps me stay alive in this van.
Yeah.
But if I make something else with that type of energy that's negative and destructive, that's different.
Well, I mean, if you really break it down, I feel like it just like you said, it's not the technology that's bad, it's the economic systems in which they exist.
Yeah.
And currently, and this is like, we probably should wrap it up. Because I think we've been going for like almost 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I think over. Yeah.
Over 3 hours. But what I was going to say is,
it feels like 10 minutes.
Right. This, for people just listening, this is a typical conversation for us to have. This is like a very normal, like
standing outside of our vans. Yeah.
Yeah. This time, at least we're inside.
Yeah. It's true.
But yeah, the economic system in which we live, for better or for worse, at the end of the day, the number one incentive structure is about capital. What makes capital? It's not about people.
Right.
It's about capital, the growth of capital.
Yeah.
And
and how to change that, that's the rub,
when people suffer, it doesn't matter if there's capital to be made.
Yeah, and that's the polar opposite of what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And the only way, to me, out of that is something like a TikTok helping us be together. Because that is the only literal advantage we have is numbers. If we can have enough numbers together, it doesn't matter what we decide to do if we're together doing it. This sounds so cliche and hokey, but it's so freaking accurate. It's the only advantage we have is that there's so many of us.
That's true. I mean, we've seen these different movements that have kind of come up in the last like 2-3 years that just because there were a ton of voices saying one particular thing.
And cameras.
Voices and cameras.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Actual tangible changes happened.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's not something to just disregard. That's something that's real. Like,
gives me hope.
Actual things changed because enough people together said something.
It gives me hope. It makes me feel like I can survive going down this lonely road in the Sprinter van.
Dude, Ramon, we're going to have to do a part 2, man.
Yeah.
I feel like, who knows, maybe a part 3.
Yeah.
Maybe,
well, I think we
could just keep going.
I think we got a lot of the general stuff out of the way. So, like
we'll
any that we do, we could have topics and we could delve in.
Absolutely.
We could delve into the hyper growth of solar punk cities.
Solar punk.
And what the potential is.
Do you want to give a plug for any social media or website, or where can people find you?
Yeah. I am just kind of coming back to life. So like a lot of my new work's not on there yet for video stuff, but on the aforementioned Instagram of all the terrible stuff I said about it, find me on Instagram at Hogo, Hogo. Very easy. I was a beta tester for Instagram way back in the day.
I was about to say, how did you score that?
So I have a
username.
I have a 4-letter username, which was one of my nicknames growing up, Hogo. Ramon, Raymond means protector, and one of the versions of protector in Japanese is Hogo. So another long story we'll go into another time. But Hogo on Instagram, and I think I have all my other stuff connected on there. But yeah, there's some fun stuff on there. I try to get into it with some people and for fun. But
oh man.
But Black Lives Matter, trans lives matter, and Free Palestine. I think that's all the controversial things that I can say and truly believe in.
Well, dude, thank you so much for being willing to do this, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you for opening up your space.
Yeah, my pleasure.
This has been an absolute blast. A little bit of a dream come true too, to like take this setup and go mobile and be able to do it in someone's van. It's a beautiful van. I'm I'm excited to do it again. So
Thanks. Maybe we'll do it in some crazy location next, you know?
I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, man.
All right, man. Thanks.
Let's tear this down.
Let's tear it
Thank
down.
you, man. Thank you for listening to the Spring Street Podcast. If you'd like to support the show, sign up for the Patreon to receive exclusive behind-the-scenes content and check out the sponsor links in the description.